Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to On the Spot Motorsports Media. I'm your host, Mitchell Gunter. We'll have Robert Simpson on here pretty soon with Derek Putnam, as we're going to talk tonight about the 352 shootout that will be taking place not this weekend, but next weekend at Gainesville Raceway. But before we dive into that, let's give some thanks to the guys that makes it happen for us. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Hey Tornado fans, this is Kurt Miracle of Miracle Automotive and Towing, proud sponsors of Tornado Football. I want to welcome you to beautiful Stark, Florida at David Hurst Stadium, and thank you for letting us be a part of this community. We're here for more than your automotive and towing needs. We're here to be part of Tornado Country. Go Big Red!
60 years of innovation, 60 years of attention to detail, 60 years of rigorous testing under race conditions is what makes ATI Performance Products great. ATI has been helping racers like you reach the finish line first. Today, we manufacture a wide range of high-performance parts that are track-tested and race-proven. We're passionate about performance, and that passion is what drives you to the finish line first. See everything ATI has to offer at ATIRacing.com.
Well, Derek, I want to thank you for you joining with us tonight. I know you've been really busy. You got a lot of things going on with Sick the Mag, and plus getting everything prepared for this race coming up in 2 weeks. And I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it. But before we dive into all of that, I want you to kind of give us a little bit of history of how the 352 came along in the beginning.
So the 352 shootout originally was created by a trio of racers. It was done by Rob Brazil, Jason Rollins, and myself. Basically, we came up with ideas of how to get people off the street and race at the track instead. And Gainesville Raceway back then was being run by Mike Urich, and I asked him if I could use a pair of staging lanes during a Friday night street legal event. And in 5 weeks, we basically put together about $3,000 worth of payout from some good sponsors. We were able to get 14 racers to the track and close to 1,000 spectators just by Facebook and word of mouth. And at that point, we realized that we honestly had some pretty good idea. And we built upon it a little bit every year as we've gone by. This year, we have 12 different classes. We started obviously with one, and most years I've tried to add one, maybe two a year. This year, we're also expanding from 1 day to 2 days because trying to run it all in 1 day really takes a lot. So there's a lot of great people involved. It's not just me. I'm just basically the face of it at this point because the other guys are smart and they actually decided to race it instead of trying to put it together.
Well, and I tell you, one of those classes that has been really great for the 352 shootout that you had added just over the past couple of years is the open comp class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard as somebody, for example, the fact that I've worked with the NMCA and the NMRA for the better part of 15 years. It's hard to be able to take something that is an index-based or sportsman class that's not heads up. There's a handicap in it, and make the combatants not feel like they're part of the show. That's the problem that you get when you talk to most people is you go to, not throwing any shade, but just throwing examples. If you go to a duck race, if you go to FL2K, if you go to anything where open comp or something similar to it is not a spectator-driven class, it is a participant-driven class. The problem is it's very easy for somebody who competes in that to feel like they're a filler. And that was the reason why I didn't bring them in until I believe it was the 5th or 6th year we added them. I never wanted any class to feel like it was an add-on, not part of the show. And I feel like no matter whether you're towing in with, you're driving your car into the gate to participate, which some people do, you're bringing in, a really expensive rig that has 2 cars in it, whatever. Everybody, as far as I'm concerned, is equal as soon as you hit the starting line. Granted, there's going to be some that have more fan appeal than others, but I still feel like that's the basis, and that's the reason that this event is where it is because everybody gets treated the same. I want everybody to feel like they have a good time when they go to the racetrack and get back to the idea that we can go out there and have fun. It's not so much about winning. It's not so much about the money, even though that does matter, but it's all about going to the racetrack and having fun in a different type of environment. And that's the other thing we've been trying to break, the illusion that Gainesville does. And Jody and Corey are doing their best to try to help out with that. I mean, when I started coming here in 94, everybody said, oh, Gainesville runs brackets and they run the Gator Nationals and that's it. And that's basically what I found out. I came from South Florida and Moroso Motorsports Park and Orlando and Bradenton. So I was used to, you can go to a heads up deal this weekend. You can go to an index race the next weekend. You can go to a test and tune whenever you wanted. When I came to Gainesville, they ran like 5 test and tunes a year. And it's like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do the rest of the time? So that's part of what this is. It's not, again, I'm the one that speaks about it, but it's not for me. It's for everybody else. And that's why I've looked at certain things and broke the mold of how we do them in the way of how other series do them. I'm not saying they do them wrong, but when you talk to racers. And like, for example, the old Super Chevy shows that Gainesville used to run. Where were the car shows? They were buried all the way at the top end of the racetrack. So if you wanted to go look at them and you were walking from the grandstands, you had a long way to go. When we do the car show at the 352 Shootout, it's right under the Blue Pavilion, right by the staging lane. So everybody can walk right back there and check it out. And if the car show people want to, look at the cars for a couple hours and then they want to go watch the racing, then they can. And I think that that's what the automotive enthusiast community needs to be doing right now. In the past, it was all about we're in this little group right here, or we're in this little group over here. We don't look at the big picture. And if you look at, like, for example, if you look at Cletus has done a great job of bringing together different types of enthusiasts. Mm-hmm. If you look at the turnout that he had at Indy this year for a Cletus in cars, where he had top alcohol dragsters and top alcohol funny cars running on the same day that he had a streetcar shootout and a burnout contest, and the stands were as packed in sections as they are at the U.S. Nationals. Well, that brings more people to take a look at, well, I came for the burnout stuff and I came for this, but this looks kind of cool. So maybe I'll go to an NHRA division race in the future. Or you have the NHRA person that didn't see the burnout contest before and says, well, that looks cool. I'll go check that out next time. So I think with everything we're facing, that's the kind of thing we need to be willing to look at, is step outside the box, be able to look at it, everything as a whole, and figure out a way to bring all the enthusiasts together in a way to further our sport and our hobby, our pastime, to be able to keep it going.
Right. And like, I've done a lot of car shows in the past, mostly for nonprofits. But, when I go out to a show, I'm always like, hey, you need to go to 352 Shootout. And they're like, it's all racing. I says, oh, no, it's not. They have a car show. Where else can you go to a car show, show your car, look at other people's stuff, go sit in the stands, watch some extremely fast door cars run down the track, and just have a great old time? And so some of those people did come out to the 352 Shootout last year and participated in the car show, and they said they had a blast. So those people will probably more than likely be back this year.
And bring your kids to have like a trick or treat with a Halloween going on there. It was a very, very, very family friendly atmosphere. Very friendly. My dad noticed that as soon as we got there and we started walking around. He said, look at this. It was great. Like you said, not only the racers, but the families were there. Kids were there. And for example,
that's just 2 of the people. And that's something that, again, when you look at the fact that it's on Halloween weekend, the fact that you can incorporate that dynamic into it. And again, we need the next generation. There's Dale, the guy who ended up winning Best of Show last year. He brought his entire family out, and he had his little grandson dressed up, and he was riding around in a little radio flyer wagon that basically looked like a dragster.
Yep.
So, and there's another shot of the car show. I mean, again, this is the kind of thing where, like you said, I mean, you need to be willing to look outside of what can incorporate a drag race. A drag race by itself, I mean, the three of us would probably agree on this. It's real simple. There are a lot of great things, great senses, great things to witness just being at a drag race.
Yes.
But for the average consumer nowadays, when you look at what else you can do, and is your family going to be interested in it for the same amount of time that you are? Maybe, maybe not. So that's the reason that we try to incorporate some of these other things into it nowadays.
Right. Well, that's like me. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to race this year in the 352 shootout because I'm going to be doing some new things with cameras, with the live feed. But I'm going to participate. I'm going to put my car in the car show, to just still be part of it, bring money into it as well.
Yeah, we actually had some racers that stuck their cars in the car show the first year that we did it. Hey, Goolsby, what's going on, buddy? Since he jumped in, I'll go ahead and take this moment to shout out Matt Milano with Treasure Coast Embroidery and also Tim Goolsby with GRE. Both of them, once again, coming through clutch to be able to do some great merchandise. Like you see the hat that I'm wearing that's been out for a few years. They came up with a whole new design. Tim's going to drop it, I believe, in the next day or two, and those will be available. We've usually sold out of them pretty quickly. So, but again, that's the kind of thing that I'm glad we're moving in that direction. Tim and Matt are actually now selling Gainesville branded merchandise. And for you to sit here and go, wait a second, that hasn't been available? Yeah, it hasn't. Well, they stood up to do it. So that's the kind of thing where I think it'll, again, all these little steps will add up. And I think that having the right people, having some good ideas and being able to further the process is what's going to get us there.
Agreed.
Well, tell us a little bit about the classes that you're going to have this year. They're pretty much the same as last year, correct?
They are similar, yes. We've changed a few things. We added one new class, and I'm going to give away a whole bunch of money. So, I mean, do we need to talk about anything else? All right, so it is a pretty good balanced mix of index classes / streetcar classes and race classes. Also pretty good balance between 8th mile and quarter mile. Actually, there's a little more quarter mile stuff now than 8th mile because, as we found out, some people still like to run the long track. Surprise, I'm talking to two sportsman guys, so But to run it down from fast to slow, depending on who shows up, there's Outlaw Big Tire, which is an 8th mile no time class, just to make it interesting. Then after that would probably be our True 28 class, which is stock front suspension, limited on rear suspension, and you can only run a 28-inch tall tire. It's also limited on power adders. It's run similar to the Heads Up Series stuff on Ultra Street or Ultimate Street. Basically, if you were going to take a stab at it, I'd say between a 440 and 460 class in the 8th mile, which is pretty quick for a small block with a single power adder or a big block of bankers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Then there's Outlaw 29 315 radio, which basically has turned into bring it on small tires and hope you have enough. That's basically how that will work. The next race only class that, I mean, you could still run a streetcar in it, but it is a race-based class, is stick shift. And that is an H pattern, not an inline. So that's gotten some favor. We've tried that a couple different ways. Last year, I believe we did it 8th mile. This year, it is going to be quarter only, or it's going to be quarter mile so they can run the long track.
Ooh, okay.
There are no streetcar requirements. We've tried to do it with streetcar requirements. Last year, we took those out, and we had our best field size ever. Tremec Transmission jumped on board to be part of it again for the second year, so we're very proud of that and very thankful for them being a part of it. After that, you get into the no-time bike class, which we added last year. That was based on demand. We sold out 16 spots in 2 weeks. That is a street bike style class. You see Sean Tucker's bike here. So basically, no full tube chassis bikes, no wheelie bars. It has to have DOT tires front and rear. Other than that, let them hang pretty much. So
nice.
Then you get into then there's 2 more race car based classes that you can also run a street car in, which is Open Comp, which we talked about earlier, and 650. Now the 650 class is a new class we added this year. And again, based on the popularity of it, run not only in Florida, but also around the South. You can pretty much ask between 570, 60, and 650. I think 650 is probably the most popular. At this point, it looks like it's going to be $2,000 to win. I'm going to go ahead and throw the money at it. Hopefully people show up. There's no class minimum. And Open Comp is going to be the same as last year, but we're going to ratchet that one up too. It's either going to be $3,500 to win or $4,000 to win with no minimum. So same deal. Everybody.
Hey, Robert, you want to watch the cameras for a little while and the laptop?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit busy. We'll get to that later.
You throw me a bone here, I'll see if I can help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you guys can figure out a way to do the old double and what have you, where somebody constantly covers it, like when you have 2 or 3 announcers at a big money bracket race, somebody dives down, runs their entry, then they come back up, somebody else jumps down and grabs their entry. I mean, doesn't make any difference to me.
Alex had a question. He wanted to know, is there going to be a cruise this year?
Yeah, I saw that. No, there is not. I've thought about it. The problem that we run into is it adds about an hour and a half into the schedule. And that kind of plays into the 2-day deal, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but I don't want to get off track because you talked about the classes. So, Alex, the short answer is no cruise this year, just because of the issues and the difficulties we've had with it. I would consider in the future possibly adding a class similar to, say, like what Nate just did with Streetcar Bragging Rights at Ducks Race last weekend, or maybe a drag and drive, something similar to that, where you have to drive the car in, you can't change much, or you can't change anything.
Right.
You know, we might do that next year. That's going to be something where I'd have to look into it. But the cruise is a great idea. The one year we managed to pull it off, it was great. Every other year we've tried to do it, we've run into weather issues, we've run into staffing issues, we've had something that comes up with it. And this year I've just decided to pull it out. I figure 30 miles, no offense, based on the thousands of miles that people drag and drive their cars, 30 miles isn't going to make or break most of this stuff.
Right.
That's the way I look.
Unless you haven't done it. Unless they haven't done it at all.
True. And we can, and again, you know, I'm more than happy to, you know, even if it's something we don't talk about tonight, the email, and obviously people know how to get a hold of me. So feel free to shoot me a message and I'll do what I can to answer you if I'm not buried with something. But I obviously do want to make sure that, you know, people understand that we're not just making changes for no reason. We look at some of this, like, for example, we talk about just real quick, we'll hit on the cruise and then I'll get back into the classes. We talk about the fact that I want to make it about every racer matters. So for example, the one year we managed to pull the cruise off, what I did was I brought them into the staging lanes, one behind one class in one lane. I talked about what the cruise was because I have to have somebody leading and somebody tailing because I can't leave because of everything going on. So now there's 2 more people I need to have. Then we're going to parade them in front of the grandstands down the hot car lanes. I think that's cool. That's a good way to start it.
Yeah.
So they go on their 30-mile cruise, and then, well, to cool them back down, what's a better place to put them than right back in front of the grandstands again? Well, now you're bringing up okay, well, who's going to walk around all those cars and make sure nobody's doing anything unscrupulous?
Right.
There's more tech people or more people I have to have on staff to take care of it. And you have to engineer the schedule around it, because if you bring them back and they sit there for an hour and a half with no access to their trailer because you don't have a break in the action to put them into, again, these are all things that we ran into in the past. So
that makes sense. Makes sense.
So anyway, so Open Comp, 650, we talked about those. Now we get into the classes where the cars have to be at the very least registered, licensed, tagged, etc. There is from slowest to fastest, the daily driver class. That's 1150. And the breaks for these next 3 classes I'm going to get into were designed based off of NHRA rules to make things easy. That way everybody has a place to play. We don't have to worry about, in 1150, you don't have to worry about roll bars. You don't have to worry about a 5-point harness, a jacket, all that kind of stuff. So, And that class is one of our 2 most popular classes. That class normally gets north of 30 people. So, The next class is Real Street, which is 10-0. Same thing there. No roll cage, no NHRA license, no cage certification, etc. We go from a 5/10 Pro Tree and 1150 to a 4/10 Pro Tree and 10 flat. Same deal there. That class has always been pretty popular. It normally gets between, I'd say, 14 to 20 cars. The class that I originally added based on NHRA regulations, but became popular because of the drag and drive stuff like Hot Rod Drag Week, Sick Summer, etc., is Limited Street. That's an 850 limited class because there's a lot of people you'll talk to with street cars that don't want to put a full funny car cage in their car because of now you have bars all around your head, and that's not something most people want to drive. So that class is in. We added that, I want to say, 3 years ago, and from the beginning, it's had very good participation. So there's that class. And then the newest class that I added last year that's a street style class is heavyweight. And that class was added based on the fact that the original class we started the Shootout with, which was small tire street car, that class had gotten so fast, even with rules, to where, okay, we're going to have to limit it by something. So the first thing you do is limit it with indexes, and that kind of separates itself out. Then the next thing you could do is either worry about the power adders, worry about the car design, or something else like weight. Well, if you look at how heavy modern stuff is, that's why a lot of them want to participate in something where there's like, say, a 4,000 pound minimum weight. Streetcar Takeover has it. Rocky Mountain Race Week has it. I can't remember if there's other drag and drives off the top of my head that have it, but that's basically where the concept came from. So heavyweight is run what you brung, hope you brought enough. You can't weigh less than 4,000 pounds with only 200 pounds of ballast. So that means even if you bring a 3,800 pound car, that's a pretty heavy car. The problem with that is there's somebody that's already been 740s at 193 miles an hour in a Cadillac that weighs 4,200 pounds. So I'm sure there'll be some way of re-engineering that class again. But for me, thankfully, I haven't had anybody that quick. I think the quickest.
Boy, the parachutes on that bad boy. The parachutes on that bad boy.
Two, exactly.
To slow down a 4,200 pound car in some of these tracks, like Carolina and stuff like that.
Oh, how funny that you bring that up, considering that up until this year, the quickest side-by-side heavyweight class between a Dodge Charger and a Cadillac CTSV was done at Streetcar Bragging Rights in, I believe it was May or June this year when I went up to announce it at Carolina Dragway. And both of them ran it out the back door in the final.
Whew.
And it was one of those, I really hope their brakes work.
Carolina probably leaning. I know you were probably looking out the window and leaning, going,
yeah. I haven't raced down Carolina, but I've been told it has a very short shutdown.
It does. It does. I got a video here, but yes, it does. The first turnoff and the second turnoff are almost next to each other.
Oh,
I mean, it's short.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a great facility. It's just, in my opinion, that track would probably be considered similar to in shutdown to probably Pomona, for example. If you look at what racetracks were originally set up with for shutdown areas, that's back when cars were going 240, 250 was considered upper end. And those were top fuel cars, not street cars, not, drag and drive cars, not stuff that weighed 3,000 pounds, or for that matter, probably even close to 2,000 pounds.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's a very, very short shutdown. It's perfect for 8th Mile. And when I ran it, and that's all I thought about is like going, oh my goodness, Tom's race was here. It was a quarter. Hot Rod Drag Week. He's running a quarter, and I'm looking, going,
yeah. And there were 2 or 3 people that talked about the fact that they did not make full pulls while they were there just because of that. But then,
I think Goldstone said that.
I was just about to say Brian Goldstone, ironically, on the last pass of Drag Week that day, I believe it was Thursday, went the track record. I want to say he went like 662 at 217 or something
like that. Yeah,
like something ungodly crazy. And not only that, he did it in a car that was running Ultimate Iron, not Unlimited, which is a steel roof and quarter car, which means it's going to be heavier than some of the other cars are. And somehow got it stopped, but I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know either. Because that first turnoff is one thing, and the second turnoff, it's like the return road of Rockingham. I mean, it is rough.
It's a little, yeah.
But still, hey man, he pulled it off. But you're right. That is a beautiful track, beautiful facility, and the people are great.
Yeah. Well, again, it's, in my opinion, the reason that racetrack works as well as it does. I mean, yes, there's a lot of good people on their crews. I haven't met every single one of them, but I have met a few of them during my 3 times I've been up there in the last year and a half. But Jimmy Owen is the track manager, and Jimmy is a racer.
Yes, he is.
And I think that that's the reason that a lot of that stuff works well. If you go back to Hot Rod Drag Week and you look at a lot of how people ran at other tracks, I'm not going to say anything negative, but if you look at how well everybody did at Carolina, kind of shows you a little something.
Right.
So
I got what you're saying. You're right. And I met Jimmy, and I mean, super nice guy. He was down there taking tech cards and answering questions, and you know, I mean, just doing, you know, whatever he needed to do. So I thought it was nice and real personable kind of guy. And like I said, everybody from the front gate to the starting line, everyone was super nice and receptive. And so it was appreciated from somebody just coming in, doesn't know anybody from Adam. Oh, and Tim, I can answer the question for you. What's over my shoulder? That is the very first trophy I ever won with my Nova. So thanks for asking. I got a couple others, but that's the very first one. That's 1998 at the old Jack's Raceway. So that's what that is. That's also the first night I met Dan McCall.
I'm sorry.
That's when he had the 66, the green 66 Oldsmobile, the big one. And he was still driving
66 or 67. He finally got it back. So
67, I'm sorry. And he was driving it back and forth from work.
Yeah.
And he would drive it right out there from work, race it, drive it back home, and it was back and forth. So sorry.
No, Brendan, there isn't a race. He'll make a decision on Saturday morning and maybe show up anyway.
Well, if he's got to fill up the boat or the car, you know, that'll probably be what it is.
Yeah. Well, considering that he won the first year that we did open comp, and if I remember correctly, I can remember 3 of the 4. I'm trying to remember who the 4th one was, but 3 of the 4 semifinalists were Brendan George, Mark Horton, and Jeff Gatlin. Those are 3 people that you would expect to be in that position at the end of the night. So I wish I could remember who number 4 is, but
one of those years Bart was in semis. Bart Pangillion.
That might have been who the 4th was, because I think the first year was Brendan versus Bart. So yeah, that's probably your 4th. Okay. And again, not somebody that I'm surprised to see in the late round.
Exactly. I mean, of people in open comp around here, you're right. That'd be the top 4 I would initially think of.
Yeah. So, and again, you know, the great thing about open comp is, even though it's an index class, it really is, for lack of a better way to say it, a slightly more exciting bracket class. And to be completely honest, it's a slightly more difficult bracket class because you can't change the dial in.
That's right.
It is. It's a challenge, like any kind of bracket racing, but it also, like you said, from a racer's point of view, it makes it exciting too. Because one, you're part of the show, you're part of an exciting race like this, but you're competing with all different kinds of racers as far as ET and speed wise and stuff like that. So it's not dull. It's very, very exciting. I can tell you that much.
Thanks, Brendan. I know my brain did not work on number 4, but I knew you would remember. Nicole, the all-female deal, that's actually something that I know I've had posed to me before. The question would become, how exactly would you get into that? Because the NMRA's one, if I'm not mistaken, they do it in a true street format, and they do it, you know, quickest average of 3 runs, then second, then third, then fourth. If you look at, I forget the actual name, and I forget, but Sophia Fox, who does the female racing with, she did one with Streetcar Bragging Rights earlier this year. She does some with Streetcar Takeover. I believe those are run on indexes. So I'm not sure what the right way to incorporate something like that would be. Plus, we already have so much that we're expanding to 2 days as it is.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, maybe one of those things that at the end of the night, you can just have a shootout, you know, the 4 quickest, and do open comp style or something. I don't know.
Yeah. As time allows type deal.
Yeah. As time allows kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of those. Listen, that's one of those things where I get. Hey, Vernon, good to see you. I get why in some cases it's a great idea to have an all-female race. I get that part.
Mhm.
There are times where, and because I'm
I knew it. I knew it. I was wondering. I was wondering when that was going to happen. I knew
Yeah,
it.
I mean, here's the thing. Honestly, I'd probably, to be completely honest, am more worried about being beat by a girl than by a guy. And I got my you-know-what handed to me several times by Jason's first wife, Melissa, when she ran Sportsman. And I remember getting razzed about it, and a lot of people say that females have better reaction times than guys do. So, there's part of me that understands the whole and it's almost why I think the female classes are here. And again, I'm merely speaking on opinion. I'm not, completely educated on this. So, but I feel like it's a way to be able to get people involved without the, for lack of a better way to say it, because I'm grasping at straws here, stress, intensity, intimidation, what so have you, of throwing you into a class that has people that are much more, that have much more experience, that kind of thing.
Right.
The problem that I see with it is very similar to the way that the old street legal classes used to be at Gainesville before they finally changed them with the Sportsman changes, which was people would run them because it was easy pickings. You'd have people that would show up there and run, you would have people that would show up and run for the first time, the second time, third time, what have you, and they're, late on the Christmas tree, but they're getting their feet wet. Well, you have people that are jumping over from other classes and basically, winning very easily. And so that scares people into not coming back and participating again. So the class participation dwindled. Well, what I remember Don Robertson did was one year he changed street legal or Sportsman. He changed it to, it is going to be for track points only. You can't go to the division finals if you run it.
Yep.
Right.
And immediately all the quote unquote duck hunting went away, and it became much more of an actual beginner style class.
That's where I came in.
So, I mean,
was it Fast Trophy?
Yeah, it was. Well, like when they originally, the problem is it's going to get muddy, and you know me, I have way too much useless car knowledge and drag racing knowledge in my head. But I mean, at one point there was, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, there was a Sportsman class. At one point, Super Pro and Pro were actually both electronics style classes. I mean, like I said, we can dive ball into this a lot. But at one point, I remember that Gainesville had a Super Pro, a Pro, and then they had a Trophy Street class. And the Trophy Street class was like $10 to $15. You ran for no money, and if you won, you got a trophy, and that was it. And it was mostly 13 and 14 second cars. I'm going to avoid that one with a 10-foot pole, Brendan.
Please.
Avoid I know Don was John Rollins' favorite.
Okay.
At some point, or actually, I can tell you because I remember when it happened. In 1997, the NHRA introduced a class called Street Sportsman. And the first 2 years we ran it, there was no money, whether it was on the local level or at the NHRA division finals. You basically competed for a trophy. And somebody that I know you two both know, Chad King, and I actually battled it out in 1998 for it. And he ended up winning the championship because they had quarter mile and eighth mile, because back then they actually sent two separate teams.
Right.
Because one would go to Atlanta or Rockingham, and then the other one would usually go to a quarter mile track like Gainesville or Silver Dollar or Orlando, something like that. Well, Chad and I battled it out, but I only ran half the season. And I remember Jason and I both, when we won, we immediately just stepped ourselves up to the next class because we felt like it wasn't fair after having a decent year in a beginner style class to sit there and, for lack of a better term to use, puppy kick.
Right.
So we went up to Pro, got our butts beat like we should have, and basically tried to get better. He did. I kind of did. So that's why I'm announcing. Anyway, so, and then it's gone through some iterations where it's changed since then. And there's part of me that wishes it still had some street stuff in it, but it had more street rules in it, because I feel like there are certain times where even if you unload it off a trailer, if it's at least a street car, it's not as intimidating as, say, somebody rolling up in an 1150 race car when you're driving your 14-second street car. Now, granted, you can do the same thing in Pro ET and beat, something much faster, but the odds aren't in your favor as well.
Right.
So, either way, we could go down a rabbit hole. What I will say, and this is getting back to the all-female deal, I feel like as good as the all-female class idea is, I feel like it should be done similar to, say, what I used to see Moroso do, which is if you would come out on, say, a Wednesday or Friday night test and tune, if you ran their gamblers deal that they did for street driven in cars, you could not have trailered it. If you won like twice in 1 year, they gave you a free tech card to run Saturday night bracket racing and said, we would appreciate it if you don't run the gambler stuff on a test and tune. It's giving people the incentive to move up, and it's also giving them the real world experience to be able to feel like they can move up. It's not just forcing them to. So
I can see that.
I think that would be the best way to do it. The problem is how do you validate it? How do you write the rule set to handle it?
Right.
So,
I've always thought it'd be good to have like a slow roller class, and because I saw a couple of my buddies out west, they have like you said, like a true street class, but it's like 1350 and slower on a Saturday night. Something like that, or 14 and slower or something. So just lower entry, run for a trophy, whatever like that, as an incentive to help people, like you said, to start, get their feet wet, and then do the steps like you're talking about to move up. So I agree with you.
But the biggest issue that I think you're going to deal with, like I said before, is, and I'll say this just from my experience, not even with the 352 shootout. I mean, it's gotten way more so with that. Trying to write a rule set to where you have everybody's best intentions in mind is practically impossible. For example, if you run a street legal night and you decide you're going to run a gambler's race, the rule says you have to drive your car in the gate. What's to prevent you from driving it up just outside or trailering it right up to where the gate is and then unloading it and driving it in the racetrack, which is what people used to do when they first started doing street legal drag races at Gainesville back in the 90s. So there's a way to get around the rule.
Yeah.
There's also the idea of you have to bring a streetcar and you have to put it in there, as a streetcar. You can't bring a trailer. You can't do this, can't do that. Okay, well, if somebody wants to come from 100 miles away and they're worried about braking versus somebody that lives 20 miles from the racetrack, I can understand the difference there. But again, how do you write that rule set becomes the problem. And this kind of, again, spills into the whole idea of crews to prove a streetcar versus what somebody says is a streetcar and what isn't. For example, Tom Bailey's car. There's people that say a Pro Mod fiberglass car is not a streetcar. Sure, that's fine. You're welcome to your opinion. However, in my opinion, even though it's not the weapon I would choose, I'd choose a small tire all steel car. In my opinion, it passes the state inspections for what is deemed necessary for that car where he lives. It has proven itself more than 3 times going over 1,000 miles with no trailer other than what he tows behind him. And the fact that he has to work on it in between with nobody else that can help him other than his passenger. If that doesn't prove that you have a streetcar doing that in 1 week's time, I don't know what does. I mean, there are people that have these ridiculous ideas of it has to have overdrive transmission. It has to have air conditioning. It has to have cruise control. It has to have this. Okay, so you're basically saying everything from the 60s and 70s and 80s, if you didn't option it with air conditioning, is no longer a streetcar?
Right.
So,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, people have their own interpretations of streetcar. I think a lot of lose the fact of streetcar, street legal, just like you said with Tom's, versus some creature comforts. Okay, now there's a difference.
Right.
But the bottom line is street legal, on the road, DOT approved, etc., license insured, all the legality of it, and he does it. Or she does it. But I mean, they do it.
Correct.
So you can't argue that point. I don't think you can argue that point, but it all comes down to what you like and don't like.
Right.
I've always thought, as long as they had lights, windshield wipers, mirrors, tag, and insurance, hey, it's street legal.
And even though I agree with you, because if you do a drag and drive, you could run into foul weather, but there's states that don't have wiper requirements. So
I didn't think about that.
The reason I bring that
eggs.
up is because I can't count how many times somebody has said, "Well, it doesn't have wipers." Okay, we're nitpicking at this point.
Yeah,
okay?
true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
you don't have a defroster either.
yeah, and so, but like for example, it's not in the photos that I sent you, Mitch. I could probably dig one up in like a minute or two. But like for example, there are 2 cars that participated on Hot Rod Drag Week this year. One of them is Tom Bailey with his 6 Seconds 1.0, the car that he originally took back in 2013. So, again, this is part of my job now, so I remember even more crap about this than normal. But anyway, so he's got a old school big block. It's actually, I believe, a Brodex block. It's not a Steve Morris SMX block. And it probably makes somewhere around, I would guess, 3,000-ish horsepower based on what it runs, which is it's gone 640, 650 somewhere. So anyway, then on the flip side of it, you have Alan Whitaker's car, which is a 1972 Monte Carlo that he's owned since he was 17 years old. It is an all steel, all glass car with a full factory interior. I'm talking flat, uncomfortable factory buckets, and I can say that because I had some. Full factory dash. It probably weighs easily in excess of 2 tons, but it has a 3,500 horsepower 572 in it. And both of them completed drag week. Okay, does one look more like a real street car? Yes, because one's a Monte Carlo. It has all the trim. It has all the steel in it. It's more identifiable to somebody.
Right.
But the flip side of it is, what's more identifiable than, let's say, a Fox Mustang or a 69 Camaro? You could still look at one, and even if it's stretched, you could probably figure out what it is. So,
yep.
Those are 2 examples right there of 2 completely different weapons, like you said, based on comfort level or what you want to do.
Right.
And that's how it works. Alan and I literally had a conversation where he told me, because of the fact that his car is all steel, it has no carbon fiber in it, it has no give, it's stiff. So every time he makes a pass, if the car shakes the radials at all, he has to nut and bolt the car for basically 3 hours because of the shake has to go somewhere. So you're going to find stuff that breaks, and you're going to find stuff that comes loose. And that's not what you want to do on a run. You want to do it in the pits and make sure when you go out for your next run that it's okay.
Especially being a new car. I saw the videos where it shook like the first run or 2. So I know since then it has, but I didn't know that. I didn't know the nut and bolt check is that bad.
Yeah. Well, again, he and I talked about it because of the people that he had. And ironically, just for fun, he grew up and lives in Whiteland, Indiana, and he actually worked on that car in Bob Glidden's shop when Rusty took Bob Glidden's shop over, or Billy took over Bob Glidden's shop, excuse me. Yeah. They actually competed in that car in the old NMCA days before Pro Media got it. In Factory Street, which was a naturally aspirated low 10-second class where you could run a big block or a small block on the old BFG drag radials that might hook up one path and spin.
I did see one during that time. Was it the same color?
It was same color.
Same color? Okay.
Gulf green.
Yeah, okay. I do remember seeing that in a Hot Rod magazine or something like that.
He ran it heads up for 2 years, and then his business responsibilities and everything took him away from it. So he basically helped Billy out crewing like he did before, and then let the car sit for a while, decided he wanted to street drive it, but with a 15.5-to-1 big block, street driving it really wasn't that fun. Right. So he shoved it in storage. It didn't do anything. And then he finally decided, after doing a drag and drive a couple of times as a passenger with somebody, that he wanted to change the car where he could use it in multiple applications, one of which being drag and drive. So the car got done up in Indiana, but then he sent it to another guy's car that you already brought up, Devin Vanderhoof, who runs HCR Customs or HCR Innovations, and he wired and plumbed that car, and the videos of how much stuff is in that car is insane. It still has factory power windows and stuff in it. I mean, it's nuts.
I hope to see that car in person. Hopefully he brings it down to Sick Week.
He told me that he was planning on bringing it to Sick Week, but I do know it's going to Death Week as of earlier this week.
Really? He's taking that? Wow. Okay. Well,
yeah, the whole Death Week survival thing versus it somewhat has turned into. Ironically, I've been doing a lot on that this week, but we can get into that if you want. I don't care. So,
Do you?
but
before we do, you want to? I'll go through some of these pictures real quick, and we can talk a little bit about these competitors and what classes that they run in. And of course, the first one is up. It's going to be the Corvette Wizard.
Yeah, Mr. Mark Roberts, he has shown up pretty much every year. He runs NHRA Top Sportsman in a variety of rides because he builds some stuff and then also participates when he gets a chance. So hopefully we'll see him this year, depending on what the NHRA division schedule is. I believe they're done. Maybe they're not. I don't know. I can't remember. I know they have. I thought they had one more.
Divisional wise, yes.
Yeah. Oh, so it could be next weekend, possibly.
Yeah.
This is Jerry Martin. Jerry has come a long way since the first year he ran Big Tire. So this car has done quite well. Both, it's made it to, I want to say the semifinals or the finals of the 352 shootout at least once. He has done quite well with no prep racing this car, both small tire and big tire, and the fact that he owns a local business, S&M Automotive and Performance, and he's been a big part of Gainesville Raceway for the last 5-6 years, testing this car with his wife Kayla. So he's done well with that car. I mean, this is one of my favorite Fox bodies. This is Austin Ship. Austin runs Coyote stock in the NMRA, and that's a sealed Ford Racing crate motor and a sealed tuner. If I remember correctly, their Gen 2 one was like 460 horsepower. It might be a little bit more than that now that they're on the Gen 3, but the design of this class is this is supposed to be quote-unquote affordable heads-up drag racing. Now, we laugh about it, but the funny thing is that when you look at the fact that the engine and the controller for this car is under $10,000 total, that's a big chunk of money that you save versus trying to build some kind of class limited, bullet. And not only that, they'll usually last 4 to 5 years because they're 10-to-1 compression setups. This car will go 970s on a good day, and it's a stick. Yep. And almost everybody that participates in the classes, it runs a Jericho 4-speed. So it's a stick shift class, and I believe they have to weigh 3,000 or 3,100 pounds, and it's small tire stock suspension.
Yeah, I think it's a spec tire, like a 1026 or something like that on it. But you're right. That car is absolutely beautiful, and it is quick.
Yeah, and he's out of Ocala, so I know he comes to Gainesville and tests when he gets a chance. But it's him and a couple other people that have been Gainesville regulars for a while. And again, that's a perfect example of something that, in my opinion, works well for trying to move heads-up drag racing to the next level. It's a car that is very easily identifiable. It's something that spectators can identify with. And the fact that it's a clutch setup to be competitive means that they're going to leave wheels in the air almost every single time, and spectators love that.
Absolutely.
This is Steve Chisholm. Steve runs this is actually his first pickup truck for his plumbing business. He's kept it all these years. It's an original 3+3 3500, I believe. And now it has a big block with an F2, I believe, Pro Charger. And it's been pretty quick. It's been in the single digits, if I remember correctly.
Yep. He has run a high 9 with it for sure.
Yep.
And what's so funny when spectators come out and they see this truck pull around before it even hits the water box, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, man, that thing's going to be heavy and slow." And then burnouts don't lie. So when he starts getting burnout, people tend to go, "Oh, it's got some power."
Yeah.
And then they really sit down when they see the number on the scoreboard. So,
yeah, if I remember correctly, he was on Pastime with this truck back when it had the nitrous setup still on it, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he said it weighed close to 7,000 pounds, which, again, I don't doubt.
Yeah, Kevin has a video out about this truck, and you're absolutely right what you said. And there's no mistake in that truck. The surge that it has, I mean, it's an amazing piece, like you said.
Yeah, it is a very unique truck, and he's already messaged me and told me he's planning on bringing it back out again this year and running it. It is definitely a fan favorite.
Yes, it is.
Bob. Now, this is Bob Hogston, somebody I know you two are both familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So Bob has He's been part of the 352 Shootout for the last couple of years. This is his quicker of his two SS454 trucks. The other one, his street truck, he ran in the 1150 class one year, and I believe runnered up in it. I'm not sure if he's going to bring this one or he's going to bring the other one. But this one has gotten pretty quick. I want to say in the 8th mile, it's down in the 6:05.90 range now, which for a full-size pickup truck is pretty quick.
It's moving it pretty good.
This is Chris Rossman in Alan Montaigne's 1968 Camaro, and this car has actually driven in the gate, won, and driven home before. He is a two-time winner in the Real Street class, and he's been out testing the car this year again, just like he always does. I think Rollins helped him a little bit with the engine in the last year plus. And if I remember correctly, I think I saw the car run like a 970 or 980 something. So he's got plenty in the tank for 10-0, and he's a very good competitor. Plus, it's a cool looking car. It's got the old school 68 SS stripe on it. It's got Krager Super Tricks on it. So it's kind of a throwback car. It's really cool to see something that looks really clean, but always hangs the wheels like this.
That's a beautiful car.
And then I was going to say, come on, you're not going to give Kevin and Kimber and Will their.
That's great to say.
Yeah.
Good old sucker mom.
Yeah, now this car has gone through a big transformation from what you see here because they took it on their second sick week in 2023. The first year that they did it like this with the lightweight front end, and I believe it still had the lightweight doors on it. Now the car is in the trim where it has the original factory doors, all the original factory front clip on it. And I think they've changed the engine. I want to say it has a 388 cubic inch Texas Speed engine in it now. I can't remember off the top of my head what size the turbo is in it, but I want to say the car's been in the 760, 750 range turned up. I don't know what it'll run. I don't know if they've run faster than that or not.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
it's been in the high sevens and got overdrive in it too.
Yeah, and that is Kimber Jones's car that he's had for, I want to say, almost 3+ decades, and it's a kind of partnership deal between Kevin, Kimber, and Will Stevenson. And for the first several years that they competed with that car, they kept trading off every year. And Will Stevenson, a guy who had run limited drag radial with his third-gen Camaro in the past, is the only guy out of the three of them to win. Kevin has made it to the finals at the 352 Shootout twice, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to say that Kimber has made it to the semis, but I can't remember for sure. It'll be interesting to see how that car works this year. I think he said he was going to run it in small tire street car. Oh, there's a perfect example of a heavyweight car. This is Gary Muter's Shelby GT500. He actually raced this car at FL2K a couple weeks ago. And in the roll racing segment, it went 168. And I think on his one run in streetcar Shootout, he ran 870. And that car still weighs north of 2 tons. And it has the air conditioning and all the stuff still in it. This is Richard Lindsay. Richard is one of Gainesville's local bracket racers. He's been doing this well over 2 decades. And the reason I used his car was he is probably one of the most excited people about the new 650 class because this car is right on that time based on where it is. That is an actual Ford-powered Mustang, not a Chevy swap or an LS swap. It's actually a Ford-powered Mustang. This is Richard McGuire's car. This is actually an old school Pro Stock car. I believe it's a Don Ness chassis. He's had it for a little while now, and I believe he's run it in big tire. I want to say this will be his 3rd year in it. Richard was in the first ever final of the Real Street class when we ran it originally back in, I want to say 2019. And he also has a 5th gen supercharged Camaro that runs high 9s, bottom 10s. So, but this is his new toy that he got together. It's a old school big block. But again, it's really cool looking in the fact that it's an actual Don Ness Pro Stock car.
Cool.
So a little bit of everything there.
It's a good selection.
Yep. Yeah, I tried to highlight every single class, including the new one we're running. And Mitch, if you don't mind, I've got a couple people I want to shout out while we're doing this.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
So you've already done the advertisement for them. They jumped on board last year, Miracle Automotive and Towing. They are one of our class sponsors this year. Our title sponsor for the third year is let me see. I've got them all written down here. Yeah, the title sponsor for this year, third year in a row, is Gainesville Towing Service. That's Dwayne McMahon. He should probably have his car in the car show again this year. Really nice 68 Camaro convertible. Our traction sponsor is Select Motor Car of Gainesville. That's Alan Montaigne that I just mentioned earlier. He's actually, I believe, sold that dealership, but is still associated with it, I believe. So that was, again, kind of a cool deal. And the other thing about the traction sponsorship, that money goes towards the fact that this year I will not only have one, but two additional people on the starting line to help out Corey Deemer, including a gentleman by the name of Randy Lee, who has done everything from NMRA, NMCA to PDRA. He does Man Cup, all kinds of events across the country, and he is also a starter that knows what he's doing. So to have him there with Gavin Carter and Corey, I think Gainesville's traction, other than Wade Rich coming up from Bradenton, I don't think you're going to get any better. I think it's going to work out really good this year.
Well, that's good. That's a good addition right there.
Yep. The class sponsors we have for this year include Rollins Automotive Speed and Custom, McGuire's Auto Repair, just talked about Richard, TRZ Motorsports. Todd and his family have been on board with this ever since we started back in 2016. Tuners Incorporated, that's Tony Gagnon. He's a longtime Gainesville Raceway participant. McLean Motorsports, that's Houston and Kate, which they've got something really cool in the works. As a matter of fact, there's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, that we are going to have 2 haunted houses / trailers this year with smoke and lights and all kinds of stuff. So McLean Motorsports is going to be one of them. They are going to be located right by the crossover at the rear of the staging lanes by where the fence is. So their trailer will be there. I told them that we're running Friday night, which we'll get into that in the scheduling deal. So they're doing one. And then I also believe there's going to be another one that is going to be located by C1. I need to get all the details on that, but that's being worked on. So I'm drawing an absolute blank right now. I don't know why I am. I shouldn't be. But we've had some really great people come on board to try and bring this to the next level. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. So Houston and Kate actually made their own stuff for lights and smoke. So that's going to be really cool. And
yeah, that is going to be cool.
Yep. So we talked about Miracle Automotive. Central State RV Mobile Repair, that's Landy Santana, who actually was a participant the first time we ever did the 352 shootout with his red Fox Mustang. Creative Home Solutions, that's Jeff Swilley, also a longtime Gainesville Raceway regular. He runs a single turbo S10 pickup truck. Motion Raceworks, Doug Cook and his gang came on board last year. I'm very thankful for that. Obviously, what can you say about Motion Raceworks? They make lots of great stuff. So it'll be good to have them back. LNS Trailers and Consignments, that's Greg Lubin, who also is a longtime Gainesville Raceway runner. He also runs NHRA Division 2 and Stock Eliminator. I believe he is bringing one of his cars out to run Open Comp.
Okay.
Mentioned Tremec Transmission already. I mean, that being on board for the stick shift shootout, in my opinion, is amazing. I'm glad to have Mike Kidd and Tremec on board. And then last but not least, Jeans Glass, that's Bob Hogston. Him and his wife have been on board for the last 3 years, ever since we started doing Open Comp. So I appreciate them jumping on board to help us do this. As I mentioned earlier, we're probably going to end up giving out close to $20,000 in money. So it'll be we can't do it without all those people that I just named off. Because
Derek,
magazine did not give me a raise when I left. Don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for what Tom pays me, but yeah.
That's a good list of sponsors and racers and stuff like that. So everybody out there, support them because they're supporting us. I know Bob's business is literally a quarter mile from me, around the corner. So when I get a chance, I go by and see him and see how he's doing. But others there, I know I've talked to Greg Reese about a year ago about a trailer. So and others. So yes, everybody support them. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that one stepping up and everything.
Yeah,
and the one thing they'll like to see is all of our racers that are coming out racing. Hey, bring some family members with you. Like Robert said, it's a family event. Derek, you've been doing a great job over the past. This is going to be the 8th year, and we appreciate what you do for the racers to have somewhere to go, and it's great entertainment.
I appreciate that.
And the weather's
Let's not talk about that.
Oh no,
that would be the whole reason why I got into the whole 2-day format with a rain date and everything else. We'll just go ahead and we'll get that out of the way.
And I appreciate you doing that as well, just in case something happens. That we can race the next day.
Yeah, it's before we get off the whole thing about bring out your friends and family. This race has been the same spectator price since we started. It's $15.
I was going to ask you what that was.
My opinion is very attainable. If with this year, with us running 2 full days, Friday and Saturday, I've actually knocked $5 off the price. If you decide you want to buy a 2-day ticket, kids under 12 are still free. If you're active or retired military and you show us your ID, you get in for free. So I try to make it as reasonable as I can for, like you said, a family of 4, family of 3 to be able to come out and enjoy a day at the racetrack. And in keeping with that, like you said, 3 years in a row of having some kind of weather issue, whether it was at the beginning of the race, the end of the race, the middle of the race, it got to the point where nobody ever said anything to me. And as a racer, I never thought about it, because last year when we got dew/drizzled out, where it was that real light, annoying mist, I still paid out every cent that we promised. It just got split up. Well, in talking to some racers the next day that had spent the night, they said, well, why didn't you decide to run on Sunday? And a lot of racers don't think about that if it's a bracket race, if it's something where you're only running, say, 3 or 4 classes, versus something like what I'm doing, where you do need to have some specialized people to make it happen, or otherwise it won't happen correctly.
Right.
The more we sat there and thought about it was, are we even going to be able to do this? Because it's one thing to say to do it. Now I have to get insurance for another day. I have to rent the racetrack for another day. So there's all those costs involved. Then you have to add the people into it, and not only add the people, but add the right people to make it happen, especially with all these different classes. It'd be one thing where, don't get me wrong, I'm not digging on bracket people, but there's one thing to put in a dial in versus, is it no time? Is it 4 tenths? Is it 5 tenths? Is it a regular tree? Is it a full tree? Is it a sportsman tree? Is it a pro tree? All of that comes into it. And when I looked at Jody and Corey that night, I was like, are we going to be able to pull this off? Is it even a possibility? And we all realized that this was the first time this came up where we couldn't. And so this year, that's also part of the reason it's now 2 days, is people don't understand how expensive it is to rent a facility and then all the people that come with it to make it happen. It would not happen without sponsors. There is not enough money in it. So when you try to put 2 full sessions of qualifying down and then run 5 to 7 rounds of eliminations, depending on the classes, the average qualifying round was just over 3 hours. So if you start at 9 a.m., which is really early to try to get through tech and get all that done, if you start at 9 o'clock, if you run into no hesitations, no oil downs, no issues, the earliest you're going to start eliminations is 3. Now think about how much longer it's going to take you to get through eliminations, plus the turnaround time. It got to the point where it was the one time that we made it happen and we were done at 9:30 with no issues. It was like, that's great. Most of the fans in the stands are tired. It's been a long day. Some people have been there 12 hours. That to me isn't entertaining anymore. You're tired. You want to go home. There's no celebrating that you won. It's a long day. So let's make it easier. Let's run Friday, and then let's make an early tech day on Thursday. So if people want to tow down and they want to take care of it, you spend an extra $5 to come in, get teched and get parked, and then that part of it is eliminated. So Friday morning rolls along, kind of like a divisional, Robert, and you'd be able to go out there and say, okay, let's go and do this in 2 hours.
Yep. If
you have a job where you can't come out until Saturday, I have a qualifier on Saturday morning, so you're not automatically excluded. You don't feel like you don't have a choice. So try and make it about as easy as possible. But at the same time, when you look at a lot of these events and you look at what people complain about, I think that if people worked an event like this, the small complaints would kind of go away, just because you look at the grand scheme of how much it takes to put one of these things together versus a couple of the speed bumps that some people just might not be able to see when they're putting something like this together.
Right.
I would agree. I'd
Yeah.
totally agree. I can't
It's not something
imagine.
that you can throw together in 2 weeks. It
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
happen that way.
It's like I was saying, I can't imagine that the obviously the planning that you start literally the day after the race. You know what I mean? Start your checklist. Like I said, I can't even imagine all the stuff you have to go through. But you've worked your way through it, and it shows. Look, it's a very well run event. Of course, I know there's always hiccups that you can't control. Very
Right.
well run event. Very family very family friendly. Not only with the ticket prices, but recognizing the military like you do, which is great. Also, I mean, it's fun for the kids. I saw, like I said, a lot of kids going around with, trick or treating and, costumes and things like that. And my dad enjoyed it. He's looking forward to it every year. And just to go back because he just has fun. And
Right.
not only, like I said, the racing, but the car show and everything like that. And so it's great. And your hard work is definitely showing.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's not just me. Like I said, it's part of it is recognizing who needs to be there. And part of that is,
Agreed.
Like you look at, for example, Gainesville has a great base to build off of. Jody, Corey, and our entire crew there does a great job. But when you bring something like this in, there's so many more moving pieces. And this year, like I said, I've stepped that up to try to make things work a little bit better. Right. Not only Gavin Carter, who's helped me manage the event for the last 3 years. I've also brought Shannon Murphy in. She's done the NMRA, NMCA stuff, everything from front to back computer, helping run the event. Gavin can do pretty much anything from scrape a racetrack to, run the event from the tower, et cetera. So those are two huge people. I talked about Randy Lee and how much different stuff he's done. Michael Washington, who is a racer, a heads-up racer at that, and has taken on a pretty big role with the NMCA, NMRA the last 2 years, being the competition director, where he's going around talking to people, finding out how their experiences are, how much time they need to keep the show rolling, that kind of thing. Those are the kind of people you need to have on your staff when you run a heads-up race, because otherwise you'll have dead track time where nothing's going down, and now your spectators are like, okay, well, they don't get the back part of it. They just want to know why there's not cars going down the racetrack.
Right.
Correct.
We talk about all that. We talk about two very good friends of mine that I've known for a very long time, Vinny Laudicina and Ben Reeves. They are both racers, come from racing families. I grew up with both of them at Moroso Motorsports Park. Vinny actually works for PDRA. Vinny and Ben have both worked for IHRA in the past. So those are my tech guys. They have done it for the last 3 years. So when you go to tech, it's not the who am I going to see this time. It's going to be the same people you see years past. And I feel like that builds trust. That makes it easier for people to go through the tech process, because it's not we're going to be super strict 1 year and then we're going to be really soft the next year. It's going to be consistency, and you're going to know what they're going to ask for. And it should make it where tech process, again, is a little bit more painless and a little easier to deal with.
Agree.
And then, of course, I can't run a race like this without having Petey from Bradenton Motorsports Park at the front. If either one of you two have ever run Bradenton Motorsports Park, Petey is a very energetic individual who has done races there for north of 20 years. He told me 2 years ago he wanted to come up and be part of this, and I figured, you know what, Renee does such a great job having her and Petey there, so somebody doesn't have to stand at the front of the staging lanes all day long. Makes that so much better.
Oh yeah, it's been a little while since I've run Bradenton. I think I've met Petey before.
Yeah, no, he's a great dude. And again, I feel like, as much as it's the same thing as if you go back to when we first started. The reason that I took this responsibility on was twofold. One, because my car was broken, which is an easy one. But two, because I did car shows at NPD for several years. Mm-hmm. So when Jason and Rob come up with an idea and we all talk about it and we figure out that this is a good one and they both want to run in it, then of course my job is to step back and make sure that it runs as smoothly as possible. But when you're running one class and you're only teching 13, 14 cars, that's something one person can handle. But as the popularity grows and as you grow the event, you can't take on everything by yourself. I've learned this the hard way. So even though I'm the one sitting here talking about the event isn't anything without the people that are working it with me. It's not me and then everybody else below me. It's one big team that makes this happen. And without those people in the right positions, the event doesn't run the way it does.
Agreed.
True.
Absolutely agree.
You got to surround yourself with good people.
So, I mean, as far as I know, that's pretty much the short and skinny of it. If anybody has questions about the shootout, because I know it's getting close, my phone has been getting lit up a little bit more every day. The schedule and the pricing and everything is on our event page on the 8th annual 352 Shootout presented by Gainesville Towing Service on Facebook. So it's there. I am uploading class stuff just like I did last year. The classes really didn't change much from last year. The only thing I changed that didn't make it into the Word documents was because of tire availability, especially on street tire stuff. I allowed people to use, say, slicks in place of a DOT tire. Well, okay. I realized that, okay, if you're not doing a cruise, there's really no reason to make people run a DOT tire if it's not 100% necessary because we're not going out on the road.
Right.
So other than class rules, everything is other than that, everything is basically staying the same. Obviously, the only thing that got added was 650. So the rules for that, again, are similar to what we did with Open Comp rules, where I've looked at major series, I've looked at tracks near us, and I try to make a reasonable set of rules that people can identify with where you're not going from track to track and the rules are completely different. So that's how I did it. Again, I'm open to talking to people about that, suggestions for, going forward. I mean, there's always ideas. In my opinion, as long as the criticisms are constructive and done in an adult format, I'm all for it because nobody's perfect and we should always consider to learn and evolve, especially if it makes an event better.
Be professional and respectful. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Completely agree.
Well, right. I know I'm totally looking forward to doing it from the live streaming point of view this year.
Speaking of which, you will get introduced to the PDRA's lead announcer this year.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, both Jake Hodge, Adam Dory, and Fabian Brown, my top three, are all occupado, unfortunately. So I could not get any of them to come down. But Gavin Carter speaks very highly of the PDRA's regular announcer. I'm sure that he'll bring a lot of energy and everything. So hopefully you two hit it off well. And, that'll be good. I mean, I'm looking forward to working with him and see how everything goes.
I think it'll go really, really well. I know I've heard his voice several times when I've tuned in to watch some of the PDRL stuff, and he does an amazing job.
Yeah, you really need somebody like that. I mean, you need somebody that brings the energy because, let's be honest, you have people that will show up to an event like this that have the desire to want to check it out, but don't understand it.
Right.
You can't be just middle of the road. You've got to, in my opinion anyway, and I'm an announcer, you need to bring some excitement to it. That's what gets people interested. If you make an 8-second run sound off the charts incredible, people will believe you, or at least be more inclined to believe you than if you just say, okay, they went 850 at 150, next pair.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, you see, it also goes to show that, like you said, only your knowledge, but your experience that you've had with different racing associations, with the announcements and stuff like that on the microphone. You definitely have a desire and a passion for what you do. And like you said, coming from a racer side, you being a racer, you understand, you might have just won 1150 compared to somebody who won 850, but you won 1150 with some change. Okay. And you did an unreal good job. Okay. And you did it with a streetcar. You drove it through the gate. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So you acknowledge a lot of, like I said, hard work and accomplishments and stuff. It's like I was noticing this year during the, I guess, NMCA, the FAST class, the FAST class.
Factory appearing stock tire. Yep.
But I think it's Pennington, the gentleman.
There's the whole family of these cars. I want to say that probably 5 of them.
Right. I think he's got a 66 or 67, the big block car, but he has several videos out. Horsepower Depot is, I think, what it is. But anyway, he's got several videos out, and he acknowledges you. He acknowledges you for being on the mic for one of the events up at Indy, for talking up the class, explaining the class, okay, and explaining the rules in it and the different things like that. I mean, yes, he's a record holder and he understands that, but he was talking about the way that you were how you're recognizing other people, acknowledging them, telling about their cars and combinations, and getting people interested in not only their class but other classes too, but just showing your knowledge about it, and it shows. So when I saw that, it made me smile, because being around you enough to see your passion, your knowledge, and what you enjoy doing, it shows. And so I compliment you, man.
I appreciate that. I honestly didn't know. Factory appearing stock tire, in my opinion, is probably one of the more slept on classes out there, just because, don't get me wrong, I mean, I grew up around that genre of cars. As far as, I mean, I didn't grow up in the 60s. It would have been cool if I did. I was born in the 70s, and there's nothing cool from 76 other than maybe a little Dodge Little Red pickup truck. But
true.
The fact that they're going as fast as they are on a 7-inch polyglass tire with, what again is a factory appearing engine, even though it's not,
right.
And they're going, bottom nines at near 150 miles an hour in a car that looks like it could roll to a car show, basically,
with rallies on it and no nitrous.
Correct. That's the kind of thing where it could very easily get lost in somebody's mind and not understand the full perspective of it. And I feel like, as good as factory cars are these days, and I've written columns upon columns about this, it's great that we're in the quote unquote second coming of the factory muscle car. Right. But a lot of people truly don't understand that the cars from the 60s and the early 70s, they did not run that fast. They ran 12s and 13s, and that was about it, unless you started modifying them. Well, cars nowadays run 11s with nothing done to them. So, I mean, you could buy 10-second cars and 9-second cars. I mean, granted, yes, they get a little more expensive as you get up there, but they're out there. I mean, you can actually buy that with a warranty. And I feel like when you run a class like that versus a pro mod, a 10.5-inch tire, a pro stock, a naturally aspirated class, something like that, where it's a race car.
Right.
And you could give 2 sentences and it's very easy to grasp. You can get it. Factory appearing stock tire, there is so much to unpack there. And not only that, they also run factory stock. And factory stock is basically like the completely handcuffed version of factory appearing stock tire, where the car has to be completely stock. You can't do anything to it except, if I'm not mistaken, I believe their only rules are a 2.5-inch aftermarket exhaust, but it has to be full. It has to have tailpipes.
Right.
I believe you can change a point style ignition to an electronic style ignition, but that's it. And you've got cars running in the mid to upper 11s on polyglass tires, including, I've seen a couple of big block Camaros and Novas, and I believe Julie Pennington is the one that has a silver 68 or 69 Corvette that runs bottom 11s.
Oh, okay. I thought she ran in the fast class.
Again, she might. I know at one point it was, I'm going to probably mess this up, Jordan, Terry, and Julie Pennington, I believe, were the 3 that kind of made their name around it at the beginning. And Terry used to drive, if I'm not mistaken, a Hugger Orange 69 Camaro. And for whatever reason, the whole Pennington family, for the most part now, drives either C2 or C3 Corvettes. So either they figured out that there's a way to get around the independent rear suspension, and the weight of these cars is less to where you can make it work.
Right.
But, again, there's so, I mean, like, you've raced stock eliminator. You, above all people, know that there are things that people do that they don't talk about because you have to gain an advantage somehow.
Right.
Fast, in my opinion, is very similar to that. I remember reading back when Fast first came out, when cars, if they were running upper 11s, low 12s, were considered ungodly fast on polyglasses. Dave Dudek, the guy who was the first to run 9s in a Mopar in Fast, was around during the beginning, and he was running a guy in a 1968 Chevy 2 Nova in Silver Dollar. and I can't remember what the guy's name is, but I do know that at one point it was him and his son, and they were working for Year One. And
last name was Simpson, one out of Canada.
no.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
No, he's actually out of Georgia. I can't think of
my mistake.
I'll have to dig. This is where my memory gets spotty. But the funny thing is I remember like looking at that I'm guessing this was the 90s, and you're going, that's pretty impressive for a naturally aspirated, no power adder on a tire that's about this big.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that they, I guess, decided that they were going to allow people to see was they gave some tips. I believe it was in Superstock and Drag Illustrated. That shows how old I am.
Good magazine.
And one of the things that they showed was they ran a spare tire, but they filled the spare tire with water instead of air to add about 80 to 100 pounds right over the rear axle, because you couldn't bolt external weight in the car like you would with anything else. It had to have a factory appearing trunk. So what they did was they kept the jack and all that stuff, but then they just filled the tire full of water instead of whatever. And they said if the traction was really good, what they would do is they would just yank the valve stem core out and they'd pull water out of it so the car didn't weigh as much. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Wow.
I like that. I've heard the concrete in them. I've heard them full of water, but I've never heard of them adjusting the weight by taking water in and out of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. That's a new one to me.
Yep.
I like it though.
Yep. Like I said, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That's the reason why I have been on the road a lot more this year, is because of my job change working for Tom with Sick the Magazine. It has allowed me to go out and announce more. And I figured if I was lucky enough to be able to get given the opportunity to do this, I might as well at least try, because it is a very demanding deal. And being able to work from home when I'm not on the road, not have to go to an office like I used to, and lose a lot of time each and every day, that's one of the reasons that I was able to make this work with my family. Is, otherwise it would be, find somebody who's sane, unless they just don't like their partner, that's going to say, yeah, sure, you can disappear for 20 weekends a year.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
No. I mean,
not going to work.
No.
But you've definitely kept yourself busy this year. I mean, I don't know how many drag and drive events you've announced. I don't know how many NMCA and MRAs, PDRAs, anything with an A on the end. I don't know.
I haven't done any PDRAs. They basically have the guy who's coming does all of them, to my knowledge. NMCA and MRA ones this year I have done.
Did you do the one in Bradenton?
I want to say 6. I actually had a list. Well, I wanted to know. I mean, I mean, yeah, it's funny. I mean, I laughed at it too, but somebody asked me one time, they said, how many events did you do last year? Because I burned all 3 weeks of my vacation trying to announce events. Right. And so I said, okay, well, I guess I'll start putting a list together. I'll actually look at it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, I did 6. So 2 of them are easy. I got to do the 2 in Orlando, but which will become 1 next year. But the cool thing is the NMRA will start their season at Gainesville in February next year.
Yes, I was fixing to bring that up, which is a really neat opportunity both for NMRA, and for Gainesville Raceway.
Yes, I still think that, unfortunately, there is some stigma of how good Gainesville works, what they use it for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, versus, which, let's be honest, I mean, Wade Rich worked at Orlando and South Georgia for quite a while. He helped those programs. He's now back at BMP, where he originally got his start. And he has done such a great job with that facility that people are willing to drive that far into the state to do it. The problem is, if you look at a lot of events nowadays, Florida isn't getting as many as they used to, because you have to drive so far into the state, versus if you have it in just Georgia or the Carolinas or Alabama or Tennessee. Like, for example, let's take the World Foot Brake Challenge. Mm-hmm. That has always worked well. they've done it also in, I want to say, Mississippi, and it's been okay, but it hasn't been as good. Rob Reynolds tried to do one at Emerald Coast Dragway, not that far away from Bristol compared to, say, Gainesville or Orlando, but I want to say it had like 120 cars for $10,000. So that's the issue you run into is Florida's great, but when I travel more and I go to places where they only race for 6 or 7 months, and the weather that Floridians say, I don't want to go out in it, I'm going to sweat to death. You go to Michigan and people are like, well, I'm going to be in snow for 4 months, so I'm going to race now because it's the chances I have.
Right.
And I feel that might be part of it, but I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics in there. Not only that, but there's a lot of events nowadays. I mean, you know, Jared and Luke have talked about this on their Sportsman Drag Racing podcast a bunch. When you go back and you look at the drag and drive segment, to get into Sick the Magazine, is very similar to that. If you look at the fact that the OG Million was by itself for as long as it was, now you look at how many other events are out there that pay 40 or 50 grand or more per race. And it's become almost commonplace. Like originally a $10,000, $20,000 race was big news. Now, I hate to say it, but that's almost considered like, okay, whatever.
Right.
Well,
right.
Yeah. Well, Drag and Drive is kind of the same way. Hot Rod Drag Week started everything back in 2005. It took until, I want to say, 2015 before Rocky Mountain Race Week got created. This year, there are 31 Drag and Drives. 3 of them are in Canada. 2 of them are in Australia.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that. And that doesn't even include, well, it does include the Alaskan one that they did already.
It
you
does.
Know what I mean? Which is the first of its kind.
Yeah.
And then the one that Vanderhoop puts on there.
And Devin does too. He does, they call it the Southeastern Street Meet, and it is done twice a year. The one that he's doing in the fall, I believe it's the same weekend as the Fall Brawl at Gainesville. I believe it's that week. I believe it's the 6th through the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Or it's either that or it's the next week. But he actually has not only heads up stuff, but I believe he also has index-based stuff. And if I remember correctly, the report that I wrote on that, as well as the ones that I've done for Sick Week and Sick Summer, even as a bracket racer, you're like, that's really impressive. Like, for example, I don't know if you know this, Robert, because I know you have been to Sick Week.
Yeah.
But Tom, as a competitor, went from the whole Street Machine Eliminator deal that Hot Rod does, and then they run an open comp style format, but it basically means you have to run like 1070s to even have a chance.
Right.
Okay. Rocky Mountain Race Week runs individual indexes from, I think, 9.0 all the way up to, I want to say, 14 flat. And then, so that gives everybody a chance, which I love that idea.
I do too.
What Tom did is he came up with Dial Your Own and Pro Dial Your Own. Pro Dial Your Own is $9.99 and quicker. Dial Your Own is 10 flat and slower. The first day, you hand in a time slip. How close you stay to that time slip is your average, and then they award for second and third at the end of the week.
Right.
And
I like that.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe, and I'm gonna look so I don't misquote it, but as good as Sick Week was this year, I believe that Sick Summer that was held in Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin was actually closer. And looking at the results, I can actually tell you that, yes, it actually was. I believe first, second, and third in one of them was like, I think number 3 was less than 0.03 of a second amongst 5 runs at 4 different racetracks.
That's impressive.
That's good.
That's impressive for an average. I mean, for anything like that. But
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
I like that concept. When I was there last year and they shared that, and I'm like going, your own dial-in, what? And then they explained it. I said, oh, I like that. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I do. I think it's a good combination of instead of having just individual classes, like you said, like at Rocky Mountain does, to have this. And I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Right. What if you have something that kind of falls in the middle, so to speak?
Exactly.
Now, and by the way, I will just make you boggle on it a little bit more. Number 3 had 21 thousandths of a second between their ETs.
Number 3 did?
Number 3. Number 1 and number 2 were 19 thousandths, and it was a 15-second Nova and a 12-second. It was a 15-second Nova in second, a 12-second 66 Ford Thunderbird in third, and a 78 El Camino in first.
Yes.
That's how close it was.
I like it.
Now, the other thing that Tom does in his twisted sixth sense of humor, pun intended, is he runs a class called the Bullseye Challenge.
Yep.
And the Bullseye Challenge is every day they come up with a 2-digit number. So say, for example, they say, okay, today's bullseye number is 25. That means you have to run as close to 25 without going under it as you can. So it doesn't matter if you go 8:25 or you go 15:25. It's whoever runs the closest to it. And that's also the kind of thing where you go, all right, let's see how good they are with their car. And the guy who ended up winning not only one, but 2 different days of bullseye challenges, won one day with an 11 bullseye, and then the next day won with a 54 bullseye. That's a big
sandbag much, geez.
And by the way, it was in a 10-second 1930 Model A.
Really?
Not exactly something that, a blown Model A. Not exactly something that you would think would be okay, I'll stop here. This is about 4/10 left.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take a swag at this one.
Yeah.
And I heard about the Bullseye, but I didn't know if it was an add-on or if it was a separate class. But you just explained that. And so
dial your own / pro dial your own, depending on how fast or slow the car runs, are classes. You can't opt into one and not, but Bullseye is different. And the Bullseye it's gotten some interesting results over the years. I mean, like the first year we did it, we had everything from an 8-second, twin turbo car to a 15-second stock Ford pickup truck win. Right. So, it gives you a fresh chance every day, but you also know that if you don't do good that day, that, oh, well, there's another one tomorrow, but you can't carry it over. Whereas the dial your own, you better hand in a time slip that you can think you can duplicate when you go forward. So like, I know some people that run dial your own that are like, I know the car will run this, but I'll slow it down a tenth and I'll hand that in because that might be something I can get a little closer to. So when you change altitudes or temperatures or what have you, but so some people think it through, but then there's people that honestly just go out there and have fun and run it and don't really care. And they'll still end up top 3.
Yeah, true.
So anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of math involved, definitely, that you have to try to figure out to try to hit that number.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what you want to do. If you're going for fun, you don't worry about that. But if you're going in not only to go, but you're competitive about it, you know what I mean? You get thinking about it. We all do.
Well, it may be pretty easy for someone who's got a nitrous car. And
I mean,
they run that one day and they say, well, you just spray it like I do, only run the 8th mile.
Right.
And say
you use it a little bit just to kind of help
more
you get
humid.
there, yeah.
I'll just spray it a little further.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, and considering that's another thing that Tom did with his events, again, not to throw shade at anybody, but that's something that he also did where from the beginning, he hired a track prep crew to go to every racetrack to make sure that the traction was the same, not just, we're at this track, this is what they do. He has a VP Racing Fuels trailer that follows the entire series. So you don't have to wonder, do they have fuel that I need at this stop? Well, you fill out a form in advance, you tell them what you want, and they bring it. It's the same thing with, all of those consistencies is a racer trying to think outside the box and go, okay, the event in itself is a good idea. What will make it better? What is going to make somebody spend the amount of money and, the brutality, which I'm just being completely honest. I was dead friggin' tired after doing sick week this year, and I probably didn't get more than 3.5 hours of sleep on any given night. And I'm not holding a candle to these people that are out there running 6, 7, and 8 second times and then driving to the next place and probably having a wrench on their stuff and then be up at the crack of dawn to get a pass in so they can get on the road again. I mean, that's dedication or insanity. It's one or the other. So
it's both. It's absolutely both.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
It's just the love of the sport. That's what it is.
Yeah. And
well, it's a challenge. I think that's how the whole thing started, is the challenge, not only the quickest, but the challenge of it. Yeah. And, then that's where the competition and the camaraderie, I think, started. Of course, it's progressed in different manners, but I like the fact. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can actually give you David Freiberger's exact wording on why Drag Week started. The Drag Week thing originally, again, this is the useless crap, I know.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just thinking David.
Yeah. So when he created Hot Rod's Pump Gas Drags, which
remember that
which originated in Memphis, Jason Rollins actually got picked for that back in 2007. So he and I, along with John and several other people, went to it. So you're towing to this event knowing that the best you can possibly do is be winner, runner-up, or top 10. That's the only way you're going to get something. You get a jacket. That's what you get.
Yeah.
For all of that work. Now, the advantage is, and I saw this firsthand working with the NMCA and the NMRA, on how much fuel can change when you're measuring it, depending on, is the container in bright sunlight? Where'd you get it from? How well was it stored? All of that. And you could have the exact same fuel. Well, pump gas is going to be all over the place because there are no real strict-ish things. There's a aim for. But I think we can all agree that if you go to a place that's had fuel sitting in it for a month, it's probably not going to be as good as the fresh stuff they're just putting in there. And also, if you buy it at night when it's cooler, it's going to be better than if you buy it during the day when it's hot. Well,
that's true.
When they went into this, they've had Rocket Brand Race Fuel come up and create a 93 octane fuel. And you couldn't add anything to it. You drove directly from Comp Cams in Memphis, Tennessee, to Memphis Motorsports, or to Memphis Motorsports Park, and you made 3 runs, and they averaged it. And you had to do all of that on 10 gallons of fuel. So you didn't get any extra. You better make sure your stuff will actually survive 35 miles and a sealed hood on that amount of stuff. Well, at that point, it was people that already had cars that were out there. Then you slowly start to see people with 13, 14, 15-to-1 compression setups that are, okay, we'll dial a bunch of timing out of it so I can run this. And it eventually, even with no prize money, becomes where people are going to come into this and basically, not necessarily take away from the original intent of it, but it's going to become way too quick.
Right.
So what Dave said was, anybody can drive 30 miles. Let's make it where it's a little bit more demanding. So that's where the whole Drag Week idea started. And the one and only year that they started it, 2005, they started and stopped at a different racetrack, which means if you broke, it was going to be even worse because you had to find a way to get back to your truck and trailer because you weren't going back to it at the end of the week.
Oh,
well, then they realized that, okay, having 2 different racetracks, having one that just stays open all the time because they don't know when you're coming back to get your stuff because you got to drive all the way back and all that, that eventually stopped. So the second year they changed it. Starting and ending point is the same place.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yep. Again, these are the things that, from just working with Tom, I've been able to meet and talk to Dave Freiberger a couple of times. I actually spoke to him a little bit at Roadkill Nights this year when I was up in Detroit for Sick Power Fest. And that guy probably, I would put him in the same category as Chip Rollins. He probably forgets more than most of us would learn about cars and racing in our lifetime.
Jeez. Yeah, I can only imagine. It'd be interesting if a person like him had an opportunity to actually write a book. You know what I mean? Covering it.
I want to say he's been offered it, or he might have considered it. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like kind of like, where do you start? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just where, because it just goes off in every direction with different things.
I would tell you the interesting thing about him, though, is if you really wanted to learn about Freiberger and where he came from and everything, he's talked about it in several Roadkill episodes. And like his first car he still has, He's had some very interesting cars. I think he said at one point he had close to 40 something cars. I think he's down to the 20s now. So I don't know, but it's very interesting to watch him and Mike Finnegan and how their relationship works with each other when they go to a shoot, and they're there for 3 to 5 days, and they basically have a set amount of time. They come up with a concept, they shoot the episode, and then they each go home, and that's it. It's worked for 12 years, 13 years now. So
yeah.
I think it's because it's relatable and they're real car people. It's not forced.
Right.
It's not scripted.
Yeah, and it seems like they got a good demeanor with each other. I mean, they looks like they generally laugh with each other, generally poke with each other. You know what I mean? Have a good time. And,
yes.
You can tell that. Obviously, you can tell that. So I think that's what works. But I got a quick question for both y'all since I got you here. I can ask you on Mitchell and Derek, and I'll answer my own. 2 questions. 2 cars you would like to have if you bottomless money. One of them, what drag and drive car would you have? Build, whatever. Okay, whatever class, it doesn't matter. And the other one, if it's not a drag and drive, just a drag car, period. Or it doesn't have to be a drag car, drift or whatever. What's 2 cars you would like to have?
Mitch, you got your answer because mine's going to be long-winded, like me.
Well, I tell you the truth. I like my car because I drive it everywhere, drive it to work, and I race it. So I would just, use that as my drive and drag car because I can throw the drag radials on it and go anywhere I need to go.
I'm talking about if you could have anything.
Yeah, unlimited money, meaning you can
unlimited
go out and buy whatever you wanted.
I mean, have what you want, do what you want, build what you want. 2 cars. One drag and drive, other drag racing, or any other kind of car.
I would still like to keep my Charger. The other car I would like, if I had unloadable spending money, I would say a Cuda.
A Cuda?
That's not a bad choice.
What year Cuda?
Yeah, early Cuda, big glass window, or later 60s, early 70s Cudas?
Right.
I would say 70s.
Okay. I mean, 71s are pretty desirable. I mean, they made some very interesting color combinations on them, so I can understand that.
Okay, I can see that.
Yep. And unfortunately, and if it was a Hemi card, that would probably be the only way you would get it is with mostly unlimited fundage. So,
right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Derek, you got yours?
Yeah, of course. Mine's going to be difficult. I'm kind of on Mitchell's wavelength of the same thing. I'd probably keep mine just because I've had it for so long that, it's been 27 years now. Mm-hmm. There's part of me that kind of misses my 72 Chevelle. That was my first car. But I think about how much heavier that car was than my Nova. And the Nova has been refined enough. Not that I would ever want to get rid of my car, but there is part of me that has at times considered the idea of, okay, what if I went out and I could find an all original sheet metal car like mine was before I replaced some stuff on it. And then I've got a nice blank canvas, and whatever I decided I would change out of my current one could be applied to this one. Like, for example, the first couple things I would think of, instead of putting a full mild steel cage in it, it would be Molly. So I'd save about 30 to 40% of the weight. Right. I'd probably do a Ford 9-inch versus a Dana 60. I'd change a few other things. But, again, it's not like I could do without it's not like I would want to do without my car. I feel like I've embraced what it is, and I almost don't want something different just for that reason. I grew up wanting a 67 to 69 Camaro, but of course, even back when I was 16, they were so expensive that I couldn't possibly think of ever affording one. If money was unlimited, God, it sounds like such a friggin' cop-out, but I would probably opt for either a 69 ZL1 or
okay. The puzzle that you have on your face.
Actually, let me take that back. 69 ZL1's too easy. I would go for either one of two of these. '69 Pontiac Trans Am convertible, which they only made 8 of, or a 1973 Super Duty, which they did not make very many of either.
Nice. Oh, okay. I did not expect that, but you work for National Parts like you did.
And my dad sold Pontiacs for the better part of 20 years. So.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Okay.
However, I will tell you that as much as I would like to have either one of those two, the 2 cars that more than likely will become second in my garage bay will be cars that I will be very happy to have as well, which is I feel like Chip's Camaro is going to be the one that's going to end up first. Jason and I have had a plan in place for a while now where that car is going to get completely redone. We've stripped it. I've bought all new sheet metal for it, new glass, new weather stripping, all that. We just need to find the right person to paint it. And then it's going to get the small block out of my car. Currently, I have a Power Glide already waiting for it, and it's going to be painted exactly like it is now. It is going to have the old school look to it.
Oh,
we're not changing the wheels. We're not changing the paint job. That's going to remain the same, but it is going to get fuses from this decade instead of the glass house fuses that Chip ran in it.
Yeah.
Even though, don't get me wrong, I would not be where I am today without Jason and Chip's influence, so, and combined with my father's. So, but that's one car. My dad's car that he bought, his '67 Camaro in 1985, will probably come under my care at some point as well. I don't know what I'm going to do with that because that car has more Bondo in it than you can buy on most automotive paint shelves.
I didn't know that. I did not. I did not know that.
So here's a really weird screwball. Chip's black car, which I believe both of you have seen before.
Mm-hmm.
That car was originally, like, I decoded it one day just because I got a hair at my you-know-what, and I decided to decode the VIN number. And I found out that it originally was a white with red interior car. My dad's '67 Camaro is white with blue interior. The fact that Jason and I both have fathers that had '67 Camaros that at one point in time were white is just, like, freaky weird.
That is odd, to say the least.
So... But yeah, my dad's car, he actually named it after my sister back in in the 80s, back when people used to name race cars.
Right.
And I remember when I was younger, you can use all of it, Corey.
Yep. Every bit.
Every bit. Unless Randy tells you no. I remember at the time, it didn't make so much of an impact on me about naming a car.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, and people would start talking to me when I was racing and my dad wasn't there and what have you. And, oh, well, what does your dad race? Oh, he runs a '67 Camaro. Well, that doesn't really narrow it down. Oh, it's white. Well, that really doesn't narrow it down. It says Boogaloo on the door. I know who he is.
Here it is.
So,
yep.
And that was kind of like, Chip's deal. Chip actually used to name his cars. As a matter of fact, I will. Don't worry, Corey, you are going to have fun.
Go ahead, Corey. Do it.
We got him some faithful people to help him out, so he won't be out there dying by himself. But when Jason, and here's a quick funny story, when Chip used to race with Jason and John when they didn't have their driver's licenses yet, and you were allowed to take passengers. He had I want to say it was a 72, 73 Firebird. I'm probably getting the year wrong. But it said kid stuff on the door, and it was because he used to take his sons out in it. So that was how they got introduced to drag racing, was that and working with their dad before Chip opened the shop in Fort Myers. He owned a Gulf station, and he was actually a tech inspector at the now defunct Buckingham drag strip. And so the drag racers found out who he was. He didn't want to open up it or do speed stuff because he was afraid it was going to scare away his gas customers. So they would come over after the gas station got closed every night, and Chip would help them work on cars and do that kind of stuff. And that eventually led into them selling the Gulf station. And then they built their first speed shop in Fort Myers, Florida. And then when Jason came to school with me up here, even though we're both from opposite coast, I'm originally from West Palm, he's from Fort Myers. But we came to school at UF at the same time. And then after about, I want to say 3 years, Chip and Nancy decided they didn't want to live in Fort Myers anymore. They wanted to go north. So they picked everything up and opened a shop up here. Now, they kept the one in Fort Myers open for a little while, and they had a family friend of theirs run it for a little bit, but eventually they closed it. So that was how the whole thing started. And I remember when Jason and I came up here in 94 and we're sitting here thinking, it's the home of the Gator Nationals. It's a really cool place. The speed shop that was in town had like one big cork board on the wall of speed stuff. And it was all like all Excel wires and caps and all that stuff.
Standard stuff.
You'd have some chrome doohickeys that you could buy at like Pep Boys or what have you. And that was basically it. If we needed anything, we had to order it mail order, or we had to order it through his parents and have it shipped up here. So eventually I think they figured there's no speed shop up here. So that was what basically led to it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. And I remember talking to Chip in past, and he told me a little bit, but I did not know he didn't, you know, how laid back he was.
Yeah.
So I did not know the extent of it, but the amount of cars he had his hands in is just amazing. He ran stock eliminator for a while, had a Malibu he sold to the Emmons family out in Texas. You know what I mean? Amongst
the real small V8 that GM made that year, I want to say it was like 265 or
262 or 262 or 267, something like that, with a two barrel in or something like that. I mean, and just to hear him talk about the things that he enjoyed about it, the challenge of it, and I always thought this was neat, and always wanted to do this and do that, and you know, and then get talking about different cars and stuff. It was. I miss Chip. I always always had a lot of respect and still do. For Chip and for Jason and John and everything they do and work. But now I get to answer the question.
Yes. Now we get to hear what your two cars are.
On the two. Okay. Excluding keeping my Nova, just like you two guys feel the same way about mine. I've had mine for almost 26 years, 28 years. I think it was.
We're all kind of in that same genre.
93, 94. I got an interesting story on mine. Okay. I had a little Chevy Monza my dad and I built. Okay. Because that's all I could afford. A little 4-cylinder car. And we had emissions up here. I hated it. But anyway, it was all I could afford. So built it, and just to drive back and forth to school and all this kind of stuff. Well, after school, going to visit my grandmother one day, somebody decided to run an intersection and occupy the same space I was at. So T-boned me. Okay. So the insurance company wasn't going to give me anything for it to speak of. So I looked around high and low, trying to find something pre-emissions. Look for quite a while, probably a month, someone could afford. So anyway, we had Auto Trader magazines back then. You know, I used to go get them at the convenience store for like 25 cents, whatever. And to go look and find anything, and always kept my eyes open for anything. Found this car at a small car dealership, if you want to call it that. It basically just 4 chain link fences is all it was. Okay, in front of a Madame Ruby psychic reading place. And the place is still here, by the way. So this car, I'm not kidding. So if you pulled up to the Big Palm, it said psychic reading in front of it. Right next to it was a car dealership. Go in there, and then I found this car. It was primered. It sat dead on the ground, and it had the same rims on it. And it had the typical rust in the fender wells and the back window and stuff like that. But the rockers were good. The floor was good, that kind of thing. So I was going away for camp. And so the guy negotiated and bought the car for exactly how much we got the insurance for. Now, it would not stop for 2 city blocks practically. I mean, open the doors and drag your toes. So getting it home was interesting. 307 2-barrel Power Glide. And my dad said really simple, he goes, I'll pay to make it safe. Any hot rodding comes out of your pocket. Well, in a discussion. So, so that's how that car started. So, and we got a long, long history with it. But I feel the same way as you do. But to answer the question, the 2 cars I like to have, if I ever could, one, I like to have a drag and drive a 66 or 7 post car, Chevy 2. Okay, I like to have one with a small block 5-speed, mini tubbed with a tree mech in it, that whole thing, and run the drag and drive events with it, just because I just love how those cars look. I mean, not cut up as far as no hood scoop, flat hood, the whole thing. And then the other car I like to have would be an A Super Modified. I like to have an A Super Modified or Super Modified, period. But just an A Super Modified Cavalier, about 2000, 2004, because I always loved those body styles better.
Yeah,
than
the Cavalier Grand Ams, Grand Prix, Sunbirds. That's what seems like always ends up in those classes.
Oh yeah, absolutely love them. I think they're just good looking cars, and I've never driven anything like that. And anyway, I've always enjoyed that, and so that's and that's definitely a bottomless pit. That category for sure.
Okay.
But,
so the fact that you brought up the 66, 67 Chevy too, I will agree with you that if I didn't own a third gen, I would go for that. The two problems with those cars, one, you can fit about, I want to say a 235, 245 tire into the back of them because they have no wheel opening. So I agree with you 100% on the mini tub.
Yep.
The other thing is as much as I would love, I mean, you could do it with a small block, but in my opinion, to make that car sit right, you take the front shock tower suspension and throw it away.
Put a Heights or something underneath the front of it.
Yep.
Yeah, completely agree.
Chris Austin's chassis works, Fat Man, whatever. Church Boys, whatever you want to put on there, just get rid of the damn shock tower.
I completely agree with you. Okay. And as long as you get the front stance right on the wheels, on the spacing with the fenders. Some of them are too much like this. As long as you get that right, you're right.
Yep.
But I say a small block, but I don't really care what as far as powertrain in it. I haven't put that much thought in it. But
so I will tell you that one of the cars you would probably like is Larry Dixon, Top Fuel champion.
Yeah.
Actually still has, I think it's a 66. I don't think it's a 7. I think it's a 6.
Yeah, the white hardtop.
The white car, yeah, and it's not perfect, but it's not bad looking. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it has all LT4 driveline.
Really?
And it runs like bottom 10s, high 9s. And he's done drag week in it a couple times.
I've seen him do drag week, and I liked it. I think it's got the dog dish hubcaps on it and the Steelies and the whole thing. It's a cool car. There's also the 4-door. The fawn colored 4-door that run a sick week with the Pro Charger.
That is Jeffrey Mull, which if you really want to dig, he was on Pink's 3 times.
Really?
Yes.
With that car?
Ironically, as soon as I saw the name, I went, I think it's the same dude. And so when I waited until I saw him walking around the pit area and I looked and I went, yep, it's him.
Wow.
So yeah, and he will actually be at Death Week. He's bringing that car all the way out west. That is I want to say it's an LS or a small block, but it's a Pro Charge deal. It runs mid to low 9s. And ironically, there has been I threw something out just kind of like funny, like the whole maybe I need to ride in a competitor's car to kind of experience a drag and drive from that perspective, because it seemed like Hot Rod Drag Week always did that, and some other ones would do that as well, especially when people were reporting on it, because you get a more realistic feel of what it's like.
Right, like 1320 or something like that.
Yeah, Kyle always did that. That's a perfect example. So I threw that out there, and there's like the first guy that does it, who ironically is also going to Death Week, is Jason Russo. He's towing over there from New York. So I don't know where he's getting his vacation time, because he was just on just on Hot Rod Drag Week.
Jeez.
But he said, and I think this was the quote, "If you want to ride with me, I hope you like bass, old school thump action, and tacos." I think that's what he said. And then,
so you're gonna hit it off just fine then.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'll see what I still have for cassettes. I'll see.
There you go. There you go.
And then Jeffrey Mull jumped in there and he goes, "Well, I got 4 doors. I got, room for more people." And I'm like, well, that's kind of appealing too. And ironically, that reminds me of Chip's wagon, when the way he put the roll bar in it, he put it in there so it went over the rear seat, so you could still use the rear seat. So speaking of which, I don't know if real quick side note, I don't know if either one of you two have seen it, but that wagon got bought by Rob Reynolds, then got sold to Cody Spears.
Yep.
And Cody almost has it done.
Yeah, it's beautiful too. Mm-hmm. The updates he's done.
He's made it back into a regular driver. Even though when Chip owned it, it was still completely street legal, but Chip really didn't drive it out to the track anymore.
Right.
And Cody basically said, he goes, "I want to put a mild LS in it, and I want to put, either a Turbo 350 or a 400 in it." I think he got rid of the Glide. But
I loved watching that car make passes down the track.
I didn't. I literally winced every time it happened.
Yeah, it made me cringe. How the back window, I know the back window would pop open. But
The back window thing didn't bother me. It was it's like, understand that Jason has had a lifelong relationship with TRZ Motorsports. Right. Todd literally called him and said, dude, we will send you a friggin' anti-roll for free. Just please put it in the car and make it launch straight. And the funny thing is Chip literally, I witnessed this. He said to Jason, you do not touch that car and do not put an anti-roll in it. He goes, I like it the way it is.
Yep.
Well, it looks great until you consider that car had stock rubber bushings in it. And you think how much everything moves. And there was one time that we were at the racetrack where he made a pass and he came back around and there was a big chunk out of a brand new drag radial. And there's 3 of us all sitting underneath the car and looking at how much the axle had moved. And it's like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah. He told me the same thing. And I asked him, I said, hey, why, basically, why do you do it? You know what I mean? He goes, well, I just like it. He goes, I just enjoy it. And I'm like going, okay, I can't argue with that. Yeah. But I always thought the back window wasn't going to pop open. It would catch the corner is always what I was feared it would do. And it'd break the window. And obviously it never happened. But I'm like going, how?
Yeah. No, thankfully it never lost the glass and never broke it. But I don't know how it possibly did that.
It made for some great pictures.
It did.
Oh,
yeah. The year before Chip passed away, probably one of the best photos that was ever taken was we were at South Georgia for Speed Addicts in August, and he was running a 1090 index class, and it was raining, and we had already started late, and we knew it was going to be a late night or whatever. Chip literally lays down in the vinyl back seat of the wagon and takes a nap for like an hour.
I remember the
picture.
There's
people
of that.
Standing around talking. And there's track equipment going up and down the racetrack, and he's like literally like a pair or 2 back from the starting line.
He's done that at Gainesville.
Yeah.
He's asleep.
Whenever we had an oil down or something, he'll just open up the back door and climb in there and lay down.
Well, it was me, Brendan George, Jason Rollins, Edward Lawton, like all of these people are just sitting there just like watching this like, okay. And, we didn't wake him up until they said, all right, everybody load up. And Chip literally like just, what? Just gets up, walks to the driver's door, puts his jacket on and his helmet. We're sitting there going, there's no way that he's going to be awake and ready and what have you in like less than 5 minutes. No, one first round, he was fine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. He's the most low key racer I ever met, but just was every time I ever ran him a song, whatever like that, he was always on, even on bad days.
He was. And there were a lot of things about Chip that I respected. One of which was when there was the first time that Jason ever had a chance to win a track championship in 2003. I remember the 2 of them ended up lined up against each other, and I want to say like second or third round. And it was not the last event of the year. I think it was like the second to last. And of course, everybody starts talking, oh, he's going to give it to Jason. Jason's going to get this because he's up in points, blah, blah, blah. Chip goes up there and throws 20 total at him, and Jason's on the trailer. And Chip says to me, if I win a track championship and somebody had to give me a round to do it, I don't want it.
Right.
And I'm like, yep, that's a very good way of looking at it. And it's become we were talking about this before the show started. It's become a very hot topic where you can, no offense, justify it either way, in my opinion. I don't personally want to ever have somebody do that to me. The problem is I could tell them no, and how am I going to know they didn't do it?
Right.
So,
but at least you'd have a clear conscience.
I would think so.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way.
Yeah, we could tell Chip stories all night. So, but the great thing about Chip is, when somebody like Chip wins a Frosty, that, in my opinion, is literally just like, okay, that's poetic justice, because that guy literally, I watched from 1992 when I first met him all the way up until when he passed. He would do anything he possibly could for somebody else to go out and run. I remember when my car broke and I didn't have the money to fix it, and I was at the racetrack just watching for probably a solid 3 or 4 months. And Chip walks up to me and he goes, "I'm tired of sitting here watching you, stand at the front of the staging lanes and watch." And I'm like, "It's fine. I'm at the racetrack. I'm having a good time." And he goes, "I want you to go get the wagon next week and I want you to race it." I said, "Well, what are you going to race?" And he goes, "I'll take a week off." And I'm like, "Okay." So this is back when the wagon was a completely different shade of blue. It had a white cowl hood on it, mismatched wheels, and ran like mid-12s. So it was nothing like what it is now. And I had never driven anything that fast at that time. And for me, it was just fun just to drive it to the racetrack. And I would have been happy with that. And I think that growing up with a father who, when he lost, he would pack up and go home immediately. And when I started going to the racetrack by myself, I could just stay there and watch. I know some people aren't great spectators, and that's fine. I'm personally a fan of staying until the last car goes down, especially if it's a friend of mine, because I want to see everybody do well.
No, I agree. And that's where I've been. When I was fortunate enough to actually win, I would grab everybody that I could, to take a picture. And I mean, I was grabbing people working at the track. I mean, whoever. I said, just come take a picture, because just like you said, it's important to me that have that little moment in time with everybody. Appreciate everybody, but just thank you, and just what I mean, to see everybody's face and have a good smile. I think that's great. So
I'm like either way. If I win or I runner up, I always like to get a picture, there who I lost to, or vice versa.
Right.
Just it's good memories to keep it, keep that photo.
Yeah, we're in a really good hobby. The last time I looked, it's a good thing. But
there are easier ways to get rid of the money. You could just burn it, and it would be a lot less painful.
Yeah. But it doesn't quite have the smiles. Gotta be a lot of tears. But
unless you're pyro, then you would enjoy it.
That's true. But this goes into other hobbies. You know what I mean? If jail terms and stuff like that, we don't want to get into all of that. But what other other events are you involved with? I mean, NMC, like I said,
now.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, let me back up.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a loaded question. You might want to A, B, or
now let's just say about Death Week. Okay, you got Death Week coming up.
We're going to talk about that.
If you want.
It's fine. I'm okay with it. I've had more and more people messaging me about it. So to back up a step, my job now, a lot of people know, just because of all the useless carb BS that I know. I worked at National Parts Depot for the better part of 24 years. I started there when I was in college and got promoted to working in their GM catalog department when I was 22, I believe, maybe 23. And, it was a great job. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Well, because of literally me announcing one event. Now, I had been at Gainesville at that point for 2 years. And the only other thing that I had ever announced was FL2K and an NMRA final. That was it. Those are the only things I had ever done besides bracket racing and test and tunes at Gainesville. So Tom Bailey calls me up and he says, "I want you to announce all 3 of my events next year." So I'm like, okay, well, I'm married and that's 3 weeks. And I highly doubt I'm still going to be married if I do all 3 of them.
That's a wise man saying that.
Correct. Well, I know what I bring to the table. It's not a lot. I do realize that, I got to be realistic.
Right.
So as much as my wife supports drag racing, I'm not going to ask for that. That's pointless. Not only that, I have a 13-year-old son. It's not fair to him.
Right.
So the more I'm telling him, I'm saying, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I have 3 weeks of vacation. They won't give me any more because, I have responsibilities. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with making this machine work with 5 catalogs." So the discussion started getting had of, well, what if you wrote independently? And I had done that for NMCA and MRA for their Fastest Streetcar magazine and their Race Pages magazines for quite a while. As a matter of fact, that's how I got my start with them back in 2005. So I was like, well, it's not a bad idea, but the problem is as you guys know, the print media is nowhere near now what it was even 10 years ago. Right. So how much are you really going to write? And could you even sustain a career with it? It's not easy. So, the more we sat there and talked about it, I'm like, well, sounds to me like I'm trying to get out of something that's really good to possibly do something that could be as good, but with a lot of unknown certainty.
Right.
So Tom decided to hire me full time to help write for his website because we already have one guy, Luke, who I can't pronounce his last name. I always butcher it. He edits Tom's print magazine. Now I write some stuff for it, but my job is to write for the website as well as announce. Well, when Tom says you can announce anywhere else you want, okay, you give me that much freedom and my wife signs off on it because I'm actually at home during the week, again, not in an office, then I'm going to say, all right, what am I really going to be able to get into? What's going to work? And there have been some times where I've been pretty burnt out, and thankfully there are some very understanding people. And I've also had the chance to work with some very good announcers. My first 2 years I did this, I did it all by myself, which in a way is easier because you have yourself to depend on. You know where you're at.
Right.
First sick week I did, I announced with Adam Dorey and Chad Reynolds. Chad Reynolds has been announcing for 20 plus years, and he's good at it.
Right.
And Adam Dorey's been doing Rocky Mountain Race Week for several years, and he's good at it. So I was intimidated. But the fact that I am now doing all of Tom's stuff, similar to a situation I had at National Parts Depot, now plays into Death Week. And the story that I'll say to lead into that was for 12 years, I could not go to the ET finals, whether I qualified for it or not, because National Parts Depot always had a GM car show the same weekend. We moved it once. The ET finals moved at the same time. So I'm like, okay, I'm destined not to do it.
Right.
And there are people that I know that are going to be upset when they hear about the fact that I am not going to be at the 352 shootout. Up until I just said that, a handful of people knew. At one point, I considered very seriously not doing it. But I took a step back and went, okay, again, this is not about me. I understand that I bring a certain aspect to it. But what's the point in having all the good people that work the event with you if you can't trust them to take the reins if something came along? Because, like, say, for example, if I wasn't going to Death Week, and let's say I got in an auto accident and I ended up in the hospital, chances are I'm going to have somebody else that's going to be able to take the reins in an emergency and make it work. So this is kind of almost one of those situations. Well, when Death Week was originally proposed, it was in the second weekend of November. We moved it 3 weeks up. Okay, well, I have two choices. One, I can continue to work for Tom and I won't be at the 352 shootout, or I'm going to be at the 352 shootout and I'm not going to have a job. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And when I say that, there is no shade thrown towards Tom at all, because not only have I not asked him for it, I have no intention of asking him for it, because I feel like you owe your main source of income, your main job, that kind of dedication. Now, I don't know if I'm wrong there, but that's just my feeling. And when you give somebody your word, you're going to do it. The 352 shootout has never been about me, because I'm not competing in it and I'm not the guy running it by myself. So again, when you look at the fact that same tech guys are coming back, same track managers coming back, same staging lane people are coming back, to me, that shows that, okay, this should be a well-oiled machine and this should work whether I'm there or not. So because of that, I will be in Phoenix, Arizona in 2 days to start Death Week. And I will be back, I believe, 2 days after Death Week is over. Or 2 days after Death Week is over. I'll be back 2 days after 352 shootout is over.
Right.
So
you're going to need a lot of coffee.
I don't drink coffee. Thankfully, Monster is readily available. That is literally what I have lived off of for the last couple of years. And to be honest with you, there is a lot of sleep that I've missed. But the fact that, like, for example, this year I have gotten to add, I think it's 6 new racetracks to my list that I've never been to before, including Summit Motorsports Park in Norwalk, Great Lakes Dragway, which is an awesome facility, but very old school. Tell you a quick story about that. We get there. It's Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. The stands are literally packed. There is no room. The fence line is 3 people deep. This is 8, 9 o'clock in the morning on a work day.
Wow.
And I'm looking at all this with an hour to go before we start. And then I get a radio call on the walkie. Hey, Derek, can you go up to the tower and announce that we're already out of event T-shirts for today because they made a special track shirt per day.
Right.
So before we've sent the first car down the racetrack, we're out of T-shirts. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's going to go over well.
Yeah, exactly. What follow-up I'm going to have for that, you know?
Right. So I don't know if either one of you have ever been to PBIR, Merleson Motorsports Park.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So if you look at a photo of it, it has a tower that is like the center position of the tower is between the 2 burnout boxes, or the burnout boxes are just in front of it.
Yeah.
But then it comes up and it expands outward, so you have 2 rooms.
Yeah.
Okay. Great Lakes basically is that same idea, except they shrunk it like down by like a quarter. And when one of the track workers says to you, "Hey, you'll like the tower, it has glass in it now." That's the way he sold it. And I'm like, okay. I almost don't want to go up to it now, but you know, it was really cool. But let me tell you something. There were 5 guys in there, and you did not have room to put a 6th in there. If you needed something, you knocked on the door, we opened, and you stood in the doorway and we helped you. And that was it.
If somebody had to come in, you had to swap somebody out.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
but it was a very, again, never spending a single day at a track anywhere near there was really cool. Going to places like Cordova that has a real, deep history. And like I said, Great Lakes Dragway, that place has been on Hot Rod Drag Week a couple of times, and they've always gotten huge turnouts for it. So that was why Tom wanted to go there. I got to actually visit Motion Raceworks facility and see how they manufacture stuff and like how much aluminum stuff they go through to build all these parts they make. And that was cool.
I would like to see
there's
that.
all these experiences that I get to be part of. And I know that at some point my body will probably end up making me regret saying what I'm about to say, which is the lack of sleep and way too much energy drinks and, what have you. I'd do it all over again because it is all about those experiences and getting to be a part of that. And I consider myself very lucky and blessed to be able to do it.
I feel the same way. And that's cool that you get an opportunity to, like you said, to visit those other tracks. Now you got me thinking, because Greg Turner, he's from out that way and he's been to a lot of those tracks and he's told me a lot of the cool things about them. I'd like to go. I mean, I'm like you. I like to go visit every track I possibly can at least once, just to experience it and see it. So,
yeah, no, and the cool thing is finding those little what our art illustrator Garrett calls Easter eggs, the things that make those tracks truly unique in each and every one of them. I mean, obviously the Norwalk thing is ice cream,
right?
But the very interesting thing about Norwalk is if you look at it, where you think the tower isn't. That's actually the media center. The tower is at the very top of the grandstands on the right-hand side of the racetrack, which makes for a unique view, but not the easiest place to see based on, how high up you are.
Right.
So basically, it would basically be, if you were going to use Gainesville as a comparison, it would be you going to the very top of the VIP angled grandstand on the spectator side and trying to announce from there.
Huh.
And it's way up there. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's cool. I mean, and I have photos. I mean, obviously we can't, we don't have time to put them up.
Right.
Now,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's very unique. And then there's certain places that again have unique things. Like I can remember Orlando Speed World back when there were no water hoses and they would have a little trough that you could drive through in order to get the water on the tires. And that's not there anymore. But there's a track in Iowa called Tri-State where they actually have metal plates that they spray the water onto. So it makes it to where it's easier for you to coat the tires. And then when you roll forward, the way the concrete and everything comes in with it to do the burnout, it's a different setup. It's a little small things.
Derek, are you going to be able to go to the PRI show this year?
My guess is yes. That was kind of my first introduction working for Tom last year was to go to PRI, and we turned it into interviewing companies and participants and what have you over 3 days. And those basically became what we showed during Sick Week and Sick Summer. So my guess is, yes, I will be there. Not 100% sure yet, but I would say that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go up there this year as well.
It's a really cool deal. I have been fortunate enough I attended SEMA in 2015 with National Parts Depot, and that's almost too much to do. There is so much there that I didn't even make it to all of it. PRI, you can actually walk the show floor. If you don't stop, I would say in about a day. And then you could go back and pick off what you'd want to look at. But in my case, we went from, okay, what exactly are we going to do? The first time I ever met Tom face to face is sitting in a restaurant, literally less than a block away from the center. We're sitting there debating it. And our whole group is sitting there. And within 2.5 hours, we hatched a plan. I went from, okay, I'll walk around, I'll find some new products, or I'll find a racer that's there that's building something for Sick Week, and I'll write a story. That turned into, I'm interviewing people on camera, which I've never done before. And I was very, very nervous because when you're in a tower and you're not talking directly to anybody versus now I'm staring somebody in the face and trying to remember questions that are in my head. Then as soon as they start talking, then I forget them. So now I have to try to look down at my phone and, okay, that's what I need to ask. The second day I got a little bit better at it, but it was definitely a lot more difficult. But in the good way, it helped me because with Tom's deal, as well as the NMCA and NMRA, especially when we do the national anthem and stuff, sometimes we announce what I call from the deck. Like, in other words, I won't be in the tower. I'll take a wireless mic and I'll actually go down and we'll do it either on the racetrack or in front of a set of grandstands or what have you. And that experience has helped me be able to announce to people in person rather than doing it in a tower where I don't have to look at people, quote unquote.
Right.
So
well, my only thing, I just wish it was back in Orlando.
Yes. Me too.
I will definitely jump on that. And there's a lot of people that I have talked to over the years that have said the same thing. But I mean, on the other hand, I had never been to that before and it wasn't bad. It was probably in the 30s, 40s. So it was reasonable for December in Indy. So plus the cool thing is if you have never eaten at, I can't think of the name of it now. I feel like I should know this. There's a restaurant within walking distance that has an amazing shrimp cocktail in Indy that you need to go to. If you like shrimp cocktails, I swear to God, it's like $20-something, but you need to buy it. You need to eat it. It's amazing.
You just need to. You just got to do it.
As a matter of fact, just because it's going to drive me up the wall if I don't think of it, I have to literally think of what the name of the place is, and then
that was one good thing about it when the PRI was in Orlando. All you had to do is walk out the door, walk to the intersection, go across the intersection, and you literally had, I don't know how many restaurants to choose from.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Yeah. Plus, you can go race go-karts. You can go to bars. Yes. You can do all that stuff. That was also back. Well, actually, no, wait. Was Race Rock still open at that point?
Yes.
Okay, so there's that too. By the way, the name of the place is St. Elmo's.
Oh, okay.
So
should be able to remember that.
If you want a funny story about the place, they make their horseradish like in-house. They do not actually get it. And they actually sell it bottled too if you want it.
Ooh.
Well, the first time I ever go there is with the NMCA. We're racing at Indy. So I'm like totally blown away at that point just because of the fact that I got to see Indy. Indy's hollowed ground as far as I'm
absolutely.
So then our tech director at the time, Lonnie Grimm, who is now NHRA's tech director, says, we need to go to St. Elmo's. So we get a group of, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 people together. And we end up in this banquet room upstairs with a big round table with no other tables anywhere near it. And the waiter is like all dressed in a tuxedo, basically. And he walks around and he goes, would anybody like shrimp cocktails? And everybody starts putting their hand up. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is where I say yes. And I didn't realize how expensive it was, nor did I realize how much the steak was, but both of them, in my opinion, were very good. Here's the point I wanted to get to. So guy comes back and delivers all the shrimp cocktails. And he, none of us had even gotten into it before. I forget who, but one of the people sitting at the table goes, "Hey, this guy over here," and he's pointing at me. He goes, "This guy's new." He goes, "He needs the dissertation on what you shouldn't do when you eat the horseradish."
Oh,
And the guy looks at me and he goes, "Have you ever had the Heimlich maneuver performed on you before?" And I said, and I think he's joking with me, right? So I look up at him and I laugh, and there's people at the table laughing with me. The waiter's got a straight face, like not laughing. And I go, "Okay, I guess your answer is no." I said, "No, I never have." And he goes, "Do me a favor." He goes, "Don't breathe through your mouth." And I went, "What? I don't understand." He goes, "This horseradish is hot." He goes, "If you breathe through your mouth while you're trying to eat this, it's going to cause you problems." And he goes, "And you're going to do it and you're going to forget about it. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, bam, and you're going to be guzzling water and hopefully not require the Heimlich maneuver." And I went, "Okay, this is going to be the most careful I ever eat."
You're like, I'm getting a little scared now.
Yeah. But I will tell you, it is 100% worth it. It is amazing.
What, the Heimlich or the restaurant?
I can't speak on the first part because I still haven't had that done yet. I have had the shrimp cocktail 3 times, and 3 out of 3, solid 10.
Oh, okay.
It is.
I got to keep that in mind then.
Yeah, if you ever make it to Indy, depending on when you go, because it can be really busy.
Mm-hmm.
During PRI, it's always crazy. Tom actually made a reservation like weeks in advance, I think, to do it. But no, it is an amazing place. They have it's very old school, like late 1800s, early 1900s, as far as all polished wood, and what have you. And it's really cool. I mean, they have a full bar downstairs, and then and again, it's on the corner of a city block. So it's very, and again, it's within walking distance of the PRI center. Or where they have PRI, I forget the name of the center.
Right.
But anyway. But it's a place that everybody goes to. There's certain places in Indy that I always hear about that, "Oh yeah, you need to go here. Oh yeah, you need to go here." St. Elmo's has been like the only place that I ever heard of that you needed to go check out. And
repetitively.
Yes.
Okay. So last time I went there, didn't go to the PRI show. Last time I went to Indy, the track. No, I didn't know about St. Elmo's. I definitely would have tried it. But it's been.
I don't know how far away from the racetrack it is because I haven't been to Lucas Oil Raceway since I think 2014, either 2013 or 2014. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't too far of a drive, but I know how certain people are. Like if you drive that far, 9 times out of 10, you're taking something where you're staying at the racetrack, and in that case, you're not driving anywhere, or you're not going to most likely drive anywhere.
Right.
So
usually when I go out of town to go racing, this like I'm going to eat something good. Make a point of it. Don't go out for 2 weeks. Ahead of time. But
oh yeah,
it's always fun.
Yeah,
all right, Mitchell. I know
I'm actually going to get registered for that. So
yeah, if you decide you're going to come up there, let me know because Tom usually brings his car, and there's usually a couple of more. So like I said, more than likely I'll probably be up there because of what we end up doing while we're there. So
yeah, I just wanted to use the opportunity to do some networking.
I will tell you that is the one good thing about that is some of the people that I've been able to meet when I was up there was great because it's a much less intense environment compared to some of the other, like if you try to meet them at a racetrack and they're constantly under the gun with stuff to do and sponsors to keep happy and crew members and what have you. PRI, especially on the first couple of days when you don't get the general public in there, it's a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah. So if you can make it up there, I would tell you to definitely go on Thursday and Friday because Saturday is the short day, and it's when you get a lot more people up there.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right.
If you can.
Well, Derek, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us tonight and talking about the show and talking about Sick to Mag and upcoming events that's going to be happening with them as well. And if anybody wants to read any of Derek's articles, you can go to his Facebook page. He posts them on there.
Yep.
You'll really enjoy them.
Yep. Or you can check out Sick to Mag.
Yep. That's correct.
So cool thing is that, again, this is amazingly enough, 200-page deal that we put out 4 times a year. And there's a total of about maybe 4 pages of advertisements. Everything else, when you look at this, is all car stuff. All of it. Look, no ads. It's amazing.
I have that issue sitting over on my shelf. So what Derek is saying is true. It is a quality piece, all color. I mean, it is not cheap, and it's really well done. And the cool part about it is you could lay it on one side, show it to somebody, and then flip it over and start from the back side, and you have another issue.
Yeah, it's a double issue every time, and we do that on purpose. It allows us to put more into every single issue. And like I said, Luke has done an amazing job with that, especially considering that Tom started that magazine less than 2 years ago from scratch. Mm-hmm. And, it's very, like the joke that they commonly make, like if you go and watch Tom's videos on YouTube, which, by the way, if you want to see how much of a car guy he is, go and visit Tom Bailey, spelled Bailey. He's taking an 1,800 horsepower Dodge Durango wagon out to Death Week that has never been on a drag and drive. It has done roadkill nights and about probably 6 passes down drag strip, and that's it.
And they barely have got it running now before they head out.
Correct.
They just made all these different changes and modifications to it.
Yep. It now has a Whipple supercharged 3rd gen Hemi in it. Originally, they were going to put a screw blower or a big 871 blower on it.
That's crazy enough.
Yeah, and then that changed. I don't know if it'll change back again or not, but so one more time, I will tell you the interesting thing about Death Week. I think I'm going to try to write a story every single day, like I normally do, recapping the day's action, what happens, etc. The interesting thing is when we first started Death Week, it seemed like a lot of the people that wanted to do it were doing it with. Don't get me wrong, because I drive an 11-second car, but that's what we were seeing. We were seeing 10, 11, 12, 13-second cars.
Right.
And all of a sudden, here comes the people where you're like, okay, it's not going to be if just you contend for a win. It's going to be, is your stuff going to hold together? Like Richard Guido, who's driving 1,700 miles from Canada in a 8-second Pontiac-powered Pontiac GTO. Mm-hmm. It's a stick car.
Yep.
Chris Hine, who's coming from Canada in a twin-turbo LS-powered 33 Ford Roadster. Tom Bailey, who's bringing the Durango that I just mentioned. Alan Whitaker is bringing his Monte Carlo that makes 3,000 horsepower. Those are just some of the people that are coming. I mentioned Jason Russo earlier with an 8-second turbocharged Malibu. So all these people are going to come out, and there's one winner, just one. One person is going to get a helmet. Because Tom has said since the beginning, this is about surviving the week. This isn't about separating classes out. This is about having a good time with a smaller number of people at a once-in-a-lifetime deal. So because of that, he's giving out one overall champion helmet, no subclasses. So it'll be interesting to see who really goes after it and who says, I think I'm going to make one pass and I'm going to get on the road and make sure my stuff survives.
True. And after watching Tom's video of him doing the route, mm-hmm. He drove the entire route, the 2,000 miles, I believe, round trip from Phoenix all the way back around, and all the stops and everything, and showing and what he was going through driving something at that time had air conditioning and cup holders and all this kind of good stuff, and what he was experiencing on the road and everything, and noticing and making points of. If anybody has not seen that video yet, go to Tom, like he said, Tom Bailey's videos on YouTube, and you'll see that, and then imagine driving the cars like he's talking about that Derek's mentioning, and the different times of the day and night when you might get into it. Yeah, I can definitely see where the challenge would just be through the roof.
Yeah,
and it is the challenge of the road. Everybody I've ever talked to who's done drag and drive events, he says the challenge is the road.
Yeah,
not the track.
And it's a neat thing for people in these towns where the cars go by, and actually when they were doing Sick Week, here in Florida, I had people calling me up over in Brooker. They're like, hey, what's up with all these cars coming through here?
Yeah.
So I had to explain to them what was going on. And they said, oh, well, we're gonna sit on the back of the tailgate of the truck, and we're just going to sit here and watch them go by. So, I had a bunch of calls come in asking me about it. It's a really neat thing, especially when you start seeing stuff that runs 6, 7, 8-second range, driving on the street. It's pretty neat, spectacular to watch.
Yeah, no, I honestly, as much fun as I had during the 2 times I did Sick Week with all the people, like you said, being out there, Six Summer took it to a whole completely different level because those tracks were so close to each other that I think our total mileage driven was around 600. So it was a little bit less. The roads were a little bit rougher in certain areas, kind of like what Robert was referring to earlier. But you would get to like a stop sign with nothing around you but cornfields. And there'd be like 2 people sitting in the back of a pickup truck just waving as people went by. And I'm going,
Okay.
I get it if you were like sitting in a parking lot with like 5 or 6 others, but okay. And you drive another 3 miles and then there's another one on the side of the road. And then there's another one. And yeah, at the checkpoints, we would see more people, but again, I think that similar to what we've talked about, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, but the biggest thing that Drag and Drive has opened my eyes to, and I know I've talked about this in person with both of you, is it's, in my opinion, it is the bracket small-time racer mentality, which is I may not know you, but if I know you have a problem, I would rather do something to help you and get 2 cars to the starting line rather than me take an opponent broke single. And it's
Agreed.
that philosophy kind of supercharged, so to speak. Like, for example, really good friends of mine, Houston McLean and Kate Fulmer, they run McLean Motorsports out of Stark. They did Sick Week this year. I had to literally beat him into doing it. I'm like, you don't have a street car if you don't do this. And now they love it. They can't wait for the next one. And he was, I think, 40, 50 miles away from being at his hotel on day 4. So like almost done. His fuel pump dies. So he's sitting on the side of the road in a car that's been 820s, which means it doesn't just have a regular fuel pump. It's got an expensive one. And he's just sitting there with, dead in the water, no way to get anywhere. So he puts something out on Facebook. I immediately start contacting people. I know other people that started contacting people. Before half an hour had gone by, they've got 3 people contacting them saying, I can have something to you in an hour, or there's this guy that's on the tour. I sent him a message. He should be coming by your place, blah, 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 blah. Before they had a chance to act on any of that, a class competitor of theirs, somebody in their class who they could, beat or lose to, shows up. They've never met him before. He takes a Aeromotive, I think it's a 5-gallon per hour, pumps it like basically something that's probably between $1,600 to $2,000.
Right.
Here, just so you can get back on the road. It's like, okay, that's new levels in my opinion.
That's true.
Yeah. But
Agreed.
Again, it's
Agreed.
The great thing about the way, and again, I'm biased, the way that I like how Tom does it, and with reporting on more and more of these, seeing how Devin does his with Southeastern Street and Yeet, and how Rocky Mountain Race Week does theirs. They've taken the original concept and they've added stuff into it where it's what we've done with the shootout. Everybody feels like they have something they can do. There is no filler. In other words, everybody is as important as the next person. Mm-hmm. And I feel that that's why Dragon Drives are gaining the momentum they are, is because it's getting back to stuff we all did when we were younger, when we would take our cars out and drive them on a Friday night or a Saturday night because gas wasn't as expensive.
Right.
We would do it because people weren't on cell phones and they weren't distracted, and we could actually not worry about somebody crashing into us. That, I think, is part of why this is where we are, is because people look at it and say, I wish those days still existed. And maybe that's what Dragon Drive is bringing back to it. So anyway,
I would agree with that. And I like the concept of and I know I know not everybody does it, but the race on one day, drive the next day, race the following day. I like that, the idea of a travel day.
Yes.
Like you said, because you can have situations where you have to fix what you're doing, but others, the fact that you can enjoy the drive a little bit, if possible. You know what I mean? Whatever it might be. I know it doesn't always work out that way, but I do like that concept when it's available.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind that, again, I can't speak for every single one because I would need to literally I'm kind of a data nerd. I'd have to literally look at it. But the things I can comment on is the drive days normally are when you have a really long way to go. Like, for example, there are days where getting from one racetrack to the next is 400 something miles.
Right.
If you tried to ask, 200 plus people to do that and then race that night, you'd have a lot of tired people and you wouldn't even be halfway through the week.
Agreed.
Now,
No,
Tom's deal was, he said, I would really like to keep every day's drive to 200 miles or less. Well, unfortunately, when you consider the fact that there is no more PBIR, and I'm struggling to think of it, but I don't believe we've lost a quarter-mile track in the state of Florida in quite a while. So that
was the last one, I believe.
Correct. So, but my point, so I'll just use that. My point is if nothing against South Georgia, it's fine, but the problem is that the closest racetrack to it is an hour and 30 minutes. I mean, like, if I'm driving to it and I'm driving a commuter car with no trailer and I can burn 75, 80 miles an hour, I can make it from my house at the north end of Gainesville on the interstate to South Georgia in an hour and a half, which means if you're driving there from the Orlando area or the Bradenton area or wherever else, you're talking about 3 to 5 hours. That's a long trip.
Yeah.
And I think that if PBIR was in the mix, Tom would have been able to take that concept of 200 miles or less and make it work, because you have those tracks, no matter which way you flip them, in a way that makes them easier, like you said, to be able to do the commute. Right. Now, what Tom did the first year was, when we were going from South Georgia all the way down to Bradenton Motorsports Park, he split the drive in the middle and stopped and told us, hey, we're going to have a get together for the night at Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing. Brought out food trucks, and Don Garlett's opened up his museum, where if you were part of Sick Week, you got to go in the museum for free.
Yep.
Really cool deal. So I feel like that's about as good of a medium, like you said, on a travel day as you can get.
I agree.
But it's definitely one of those things where trying to put a drag and drive together where you feel like you're, for lack of a better way to say it, you're testing the cars to make sure they're really up to the task, but not making it so brutal that people are ready for it to be over. That's a really tough line. And I wonder if, without talking to him about it, I wonder if Tom created Death Week because he said, okay, everybody says their stuff's the hardest. This is going to prove it. Nobody has gone anywhere near this amount of distance. I mean, based on what I just looked at a couple days ago, Phoenix is going to be 100 degrees when we start. In the middle of October, it's going to be 100-degree high when we start this deal.
Yeah, and you're getting ready to walk through that door.
Right. And then you go out to California and you drive north, and you're going to be in the 50s and the 40s and possibly the 30s. So it's going to swing that much versus how other drag and drives are, where it really usually doesn't move more than, I'd say, 10 to 20 degrees.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah. But gentlemen, it has been a lot of fun talking with both of you, because I know, it goes without saying, but people that might still be watching this, and God bless all three of you. But I have.
We still got 4 on.
Oh, okay, good. I have not been at Gainesville very much this year, and I really do miss Jody and Corey and the great crew there. And thankfully, they've been very understanding with my being able to get out and travel a little bit more, but yet they still allow me to come announce when I get a chance. So I'm very thankful for that. I miss seeing all the great people at Gainesville, including all the great racers. But it's definitely been an interesting year of trying to sort everything out. I will say that.
But you're doing a good job, Derek. You really are.
Trying. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And appreciate your articles that you write and stuff. So
absolutely. Again, doesn't make any difference. In my opinion, I would like to be where Brian Loans is now, as far as doing it for a living, and or kind of what Steve Evans and Dave McClellan used to do, which is they had the way of making drag racing attractive to people that didn't know as much about it. You don't dumb it down, you just make it understandable. And I feel that people that have a passion for this are going to be the people that are going to make that difference. Mm-hmm. And that's why the drag and drive thing for me has been very easy, because it doesn't matter whether you're running a 6-second car or you're running a 13-second car. Everybody is passionate about going out, spending their last dollar just to enjoy a week of what could be brutal or what could be the best time in your life, because you get to experience all these new things. And for me, even though I miss being behind the wheel, that is a very cool substitute to be able to do. So
it is.
Like I said, I appreciate both of you, understanding, and I appreciate your kind words, because I'm just, I'm still the same talkative kid who started going to the racetrack when I was 9. And, I'm thankful that my dad introduced me to this, because I just don't know a life without it.
Very true. Very true. No, man, I'm glad you had an opportunity, or I'm glad you had a chance and time to be able to come up here and talk to us, to share with some good history, some good memories, and also for your shootout that you've as you're part of the brainchild of this, to say the least. They've put this together, and also sharing with us the stories with Death Week. I can't wait to see the videos and pictures from this. I mean, because I try to follow them as much as I can, all the different ones. I can't wait to see that. But I will give a quick story before you go. The first time I ever met you was at Gainesville. I was going to school and I was driving my Nova, and I come out on I want to say it was a Saturday night. I don't remember. I can't remember the exact day. But anyway, I think there was a gambling race going on, and you were out there with Jason and other stuff like that. And so I was just making runs. I was just happy to go down the track. Okay, and I was running my 14s or 15s. I don't remember what it was, but I was having a ball. Front end shaking, tires out of balance. You get the idea. And so anyway, I'm coming around, and I make a run, and I literally drive right up in the staging lanes, and they're like, "You want to run again?" Sure. So I was literally the next car down the track. And I did that several times, to the point that y'all were watching me and laughing, because I'm literally the next car going down the track as you were waiting to get the staging lanes full for the gambler. And somebody goes, "You going to run again?" And the staging lanes. And I was like going, "Yeah, why not?" And then you hollered out, "It's a street car. Of course he's going to run it." It's just like
it sounds like something I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, you hollered out, "It's a street car," and I laughed. I pointed, I said, "It sure is." And you just smiled, thumbs up, and off I went. You know what I mean? And then, of course, when I come back for another test and tune, whatever, I got a chance to walk up and say hello. But I do remember that specifically, and I remember that vividly, because you just had a good personality about it. It's like going, "Hey, the guy's out here having fun. Let him go." He just kept making runs and making runs. And he has a Nova, needs some help. Needs some love, but he's got a Nova, so that was a plus. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good start, pretty good introduction.
No, I appreciate you sharing that with me. I think the biggest thing for me is, again, I can remember being a kid and just being excited about that kind of stuff, because there were no juniors. And, I always wanted to talk to all the people that were racing with my dad, because those were my heroes. Those were the people that were out there getting to live their dream and race.
Right.
And the way that I see it is, there are a lot of very talented people that come in and race with us, no matter what they do. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of people that just run test and tunes all their lives, because they don't want to run in competition for whatever reason.
Right.
But they're still out there having fun. And I think there's something that comes from that, because, we're all new people at one point. And I feel that the way that you approach that, or how you treat somebody that's doing that, can make a huge difference in how they look at drag racing and the sport as a whole, automobiles, racing in general, what have you, going forward. Because we talked about this, it's so much money, it's so much time, even if you have something that's relatively easy to take care of. And that requires dedication. And it's very easy for somebody to get burned out, even if they don't get into the keeping up with the Joneses problem, and say, "I'm just going to stop. I'm going to get a motorcycle. I'm going to play golf. I'm going to do something else." And I feel like I got into drag racing for the good times with my father. Mm-hmm. I stayed in it because it gave me a safe place to do what I wanted. the thing that I never expected to come out of it was the friends and family that I got to make from it. And those are the things that you can't replace.
Agreed.
And as I get older, my biggest thing is I am thankful just to go to the drag strip. If I can get out there, not break anything, and take it home without any issues or very minimal issues, that's a win in my book. If you turn wind lights on, those are extra.
Agreed.
Just because competition has gotten so difficult, you can't live your life just based on that. That's the way I look at it.
And it's definitely hard out there in every class that we have. There are real tough competitors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure, like I said, catching up with both of you and being able to talk to you tonight. I appreciate you, giving me some time to talk about everything, especially the shootout, because, again, it's something where I will be the most interested, person not there this year to see kind of what goes on. But I am confident in the great people that are going to be there. I'm confident that the racers and the spectators and the crew people and everything that attend are going to have a great time. The fact that we're going to do it for 2 days, will give people kind of a little bit more laid back appeal to it. And I really, really hope that it goes off well, and it will be the kind of thing that I can continue to be a part of for years to come, because I feel like we've all been given the opportunity to do something for the sport. You too, with doing what we're doing here, and me doing what I'm doing. And that doesn't make any difference if I was doing something even half of that. If we can do something to move the sport forward, get one more person interested in it, get somebody to enjoy what we do, we've made a mark. And I feel like that means that we've accomplished something.
Yep, that's what it's all about.
Agreed. Completely agree. Well, buddy, we appreciate you taking the opportunity to talk to us. And like I said, having a good time, but wish you safe travels, man. please be careful. I know this goes without saying,
Yeah.
But I tell it to all my friends and family and stuff like that. Just
try to get you some sleep.
Yeah. I was going to back off that one because I knew that wasn't going to happen. I was going to say, who's going to drive? Who's driving?
I'm driving to Jacksonville Airport. After that, I'm letting Delta take care of it for me.
Yeah, but I mean, no, on.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting because I'm going to be driving with our tech guy, which Rick Dodge is a really nice guy. So, it'll be interesting because I'm pulling triple duty this year. I am not only announcing and writing stories, but they're going to give me a camera to document stuff along the way. So that'll be cool. I'm looking forward
that'll
to
be cool.
that again.
Yeah, that'll like to see.
You talk about no sleep, Derek. It was funny. One morning I got up and it was like 3:00 in the morning. My wife comes in the room. She says, "What are you doing up?" I said, I said, news just hit. And some NHRA news. I says, "Man, I've got to go ahead and write this up and put it out there." I says, I forget what it was, but I says, my phone went off. I looked, I read it, and I said, "Oh, I got to write about this."
Yep. That has literally been what my life has become. Like, my wife will get up sometimes at 4 a.m. to go to the gym, and she'll knock on the door and she's like, "Did you sleep at all?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just sitting here kind of, finishing this up, maybe thinking about the next one." Sometimes it goes that well. Sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, hopefully if not before, I'll see you two at Fall Brawl at Gainesville. I should be back in time for that. If not, then I'm trying to think what's next.
If not, you can catch
the No One Fights Alone race.
Right.
I'll be at that. I will also be at New Year Nationals down in Bradenton at the end of the year.
All right.
So you'll know where to find me on all three of those. I'll be in the tower on every single one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to be napping somewhere, but okay, I can see that.
Nope. Nope. So
you're going to be busy. All right, my friend.
Nova does not work on hopes and dreams. It requires cash.
This is true. You got to keep the lights on.
Yes, sir. Again, gentlemen, thank you both for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And hope you guys both have a good rest of your week. And hopefully we'll catch each other somewhere on the web from Death Week so you can follow along. I'm going to talk to Tom and see if maybe I can Facebook Live or something like that.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. So, all right, Derek.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you so much.
Take care, buddy.
Yep.
Yeah, there goes Derek. Tell you what a great show there, Robert, that we had tonight. Having Derek on, talk a little bit about the 352 shootout, talk about Sick the Mag, and all the things that they do in the drive and drag community. Really, really great show. We're just very reluctant to be able to live stream the 352 shootout. Also, looks like we're going to live stream the fall brawl, and then no one fights a long race. Three big races going back to back to back at Gainesville Raceway. So if you can't make it out to the track, I encourage you to come out to the track and fill up the stands instead of watching it on Facebook. But if you can't and you're too far away,
and this is all at Gainesville. This is all at Gainesville Raceway too.
Yep.
Okay, this isn't at 3 different places. So
yeah, all at Gainesville.
That's the good thing about it. It's all at Gainesville Raceway. Good track facility, good restaurants nearby. Well, not exactly around the corner, but nearby, and you'll have a good time. You know what I mean? Sonny's is right there.
Oh yeah,
the original Sonny's, I might add.
That is true.
If you've never been to Gainesville Raceway, it's on the north end of Gainesville. I think it's northeast from the city of Gainesville. So probably about a 15-minute ride, you'll be literally downtown Gainesville at the University of Florida. So it's not far really at all. Pretty straight shot back a couple turns. But it's a beautiful place and a beautiful town too. So if you've never been and you have an opportunity to come to one of these races, come.
And just real quick, some NHRA news. Jed Coughlin Jr. will be back in the Pro Stock car in Las Vegas and Pomona with Elite Motorsports. And, there might be a slight chance that he might be coming back and racing with them in 2024. Also, Angel Sampay, she had her debut last weekend. And
she did good, too.
She sure did.
She did real good.
Decent. Made it all the way to the semifinals, and I think she had some mechanical issues in that semifinal when she lost.
Mm-hmm.
But a great start to get ready for 2024. She's going to run 2024. That's what they're trying to shoot for a full season, and then hopefully make the transition over in 2025 and run top fuel with Antron Brown. So it's kind of neat. They're back as teammates once again, coming up here real soon. Back to the old days at Don Schumacher Racing when they race with each other with U.S. Army as their big sponsor.
I'll go from 2-wheel to 4-wheel, both just different times in their career. But she's going to be a force to be reckoned with next year for sure. Okay, much like Tony Stewart came out this year, it was immediate force. She's an immediate force. Like it goes without saying, her experience she's very talented. So this is right in her wheelhouse. Then she transitioned over very easily, at least what it looked like. Transitioned very easily to the fuel car. And then stepping up to top fuel, I could see that same transition being just as quick. She's got an excellent teacher also. To teammate, or a car owner, I should say, or whatever, to be able to help with any questions or things like that, because he can relate to her with the motorcycles, so he knows what she's experiencing and why. You know what I mean? So then when she experiences back, he goes, yes, this is why, or this is what you need to do, etc., vice versa. So it goes both ways. So that's actually a really, really good combination. So I look forward to seeing them not only the rest of the year, but going into next year. And then as far as the Coughlin, that was interesting when I heard that. Yeah, it makes you you kind of have some questions, but what do you expect? You got an excellent driver, you got an excellent team or crew, I should say. And
Jason Lyons, he's going to be racing for him down in Bradenton. I think that's it's in February. So that's going to be really neat. That he's going to be going against some of them over at now KB Titan Racing.
But as I said, I wonder if he'll wear a KB Titan shirt. You know what I mean? that would be interesting if under his fire suit he wore a KB shirt and pull off the fire suit, then realizes it and got to zip it back up. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's going to do that to Richard Freeman and them.
No,
Motor,
he's not. I mean, he's not.
Motorsports.
Anything I've ever heard about Jason Line, obviously he's very competitive, but he's professional. And
Well, and a lot of people don't know, Robert, that drag racing wasn't his family's thing. His family actually build motors for NASCAR. So,
wait a minute! You mean back in Minnesota? You mean his father, the line performance and stuff? You mean back in Minnesota? That's what they did was
they built NASCAR motors. Yes.
I didn't realize that back in Minnesota.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, because I thought when he came down or when he moved into North Carolina, and I know he worked for Joe Gibbs, he was a dyno operator. And so that's where he really made his name in NASCAR, from what I understand. Right. Obviously progressed from there. But dyno operator and obviously machinist and other things like that, which he obviously had a lot of training from his family, which, by the way, is in Minnesota, the line performance, they make some unreal stock and super stock engines. they build, so they have a long line. They have a big family racing stock eliminator, okay, with Mustangs, and there used to be Malibus and Chevelles and stuff like that, and they're all quick. And then of course him with his Buick. I would love to actually see that Buick in person. Have you ever seen it?
No, I have not.
Okay, his Buick, a stock eliminator Buick. I want to say it's a 70 or 71 GS 455 stage 1, that kind of thing. He's had it since high school. When he won his first world championship in stock eliminator, I think like in 92, that's the car he drove. Okay, and then he shelved it obviously when he did his career with NASCAR and pro stock and stuff like that. And then near the end of his pro stock career, he brought it back out. He always kept the car, and he always tinkered on it and stuff like that. Well, a couple of years ago, he revamped it, and boy, he revamped it. It's stock eliminator, and it ran C-stock automatic for a while. I think it now can run B, but I don't know. But anyway, to say that thing is quick, I can't remember the index. I want to say the index is like 1115 or something like that. And he ran like in C-stock, he ran like 10 flat. Okay, I mean, just
he's really good up underneath the index.
Oh, and he got that thing with a little weight out of it, taking a spare seat out of it. I think in top stock up in Division I, he went like a 990 with it. Now this thing is not light. It's like 3,800 pounds every inch of it. 9-inch tire, and I mean, to watch it is beautiful, but to do it in a Buick 455 Quadrajet and to run over 130 miles an hour and stuff like that, this does not compute for stock eliminator for a Buick, and he does it. And he's got his buddy he works with, Dan, and I can't remember his last name, but they have another car, a team car, and it says Stage Fright on that Buick. And so hopefully one day I get a chance to look at these cars, because it's unique and they're very quick. And then of course, like you said, his experience with engine building and pro stocks and stuff like that. It's just interesting that somebody that does that has a stock eliminator car. So,
and also we want to congratulate Julie Natas, top alcohol driver. She actually ended up winning the JEGS All-Stars last weekend in top alcohol, and also winning a world championship. I mean, she had a really big day.
Yes, that's right.
100 wins. She was able to to get that. I don't know if that's for her or actually for.
No, I think it's for a team. It's for
the team. Yes.
Yeah. So that's right. She did lock it up. I forgot about that. I saw where she won the All-Stars. Okay.
And then Erica Andrews, she became the most winningest female in NHRA history with 47 wins. And she also took over, extended her lead in the pro stock points to, I think, 85. And then with Leah and Matt Hagan's wins, they also moved to controlling Top Fuel and Funny Car. And of course, Gage Herrera, he's walking away with the championship in pro stock bike, and he's going to wrap that thing up in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, definitely. The way it's looking like he's just pretty much punched his ticket.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to catch him.
Yeah,
Pretty
but that's
much, I think all he has to do is show up in Las
next
Vegas, and I think he should get it.
yeah, I think it's something like that, or start the bike for Q1 or something. But any way you look at it, it's pretty much a lock. But that's the good thing about that class is how competitive it is on any given day. Even though, yes, he's been on a hot streak and it showed, but it just goes to show also that like anybody competitive, they're just not going to stop working. They're not going to stop trying. So that's what makes him show up for the next race, to knock him off that pedestal. And then, of course, when he becomes world champ for next year, he's really going to have a marker on him, but it's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Matt Smith Racing, they're going to try to come back next year and rattle their cage a little bit.
Yes.
Speaking of Matt Smith Racing, Angie Smith, she's doing pretty well. Been keeping up with the post and everything off of their page, and we pray for her to have a speedy recovery, and can't wait to see her get back on the bike again in 2024.
Agreed. It's good to see the recovery. Man, a thank you to, I'm sure a big thank you to, I think it was Tony Stewart that
oh yes,
got in his airplane to get her back and forth from when the incident happened to the hospital and then get her back home. So that's a very classy move to help just another racer, another person, I should say.
Yes.
And the fact that I mean, you got to be fit to ride a motorcycle anyway. So she will definitely be back as quickly as possible. And that's another group that just never stops working. I don't care what they do. So I tip my hat to them. I really do. But yes, we wish her a speedy, safe recovery.
Well, I think that wraps it up, Robert.
Yep.
And we'll go ahead and get out of here and get ready for bed, because I know both of us has got to be at work in the morning pretty early.
Yeah, my mental list of what I got to check or start checking off tomorrow at work it hadn't stopped since we started. It's like, oh man. Oh, but that's part of it. It's part of it. But I appreciate this opportunity once again to just to hang out with buddies and talk about something we enjoy and be able to share with others, and hopefully some others will like it, enjoy it, come back again.
Oh, that definitely. And we'll try to post as soon as possible our next guest for, Thursday night. So either Thursday night or Wednesday night. So more than likely, we're going to try to aim for Thursday.
Yeah.
Next week.
Okay. You call it. That's good with me.
All right.
All right, my friend. You have a good night.
You too.
Good.